Good afternoon, and welcome to Hiring Our Heroes 2022 Military Spouse Employment Summit. Please give a warm welcome to the Director of Military Spouse Programs, Brian Alvarado.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. Yes, that's what I needed. As the head of the Military Spouse Program here at Hiring Our Heroes, it is my honor to welcome you all to the 6th Annual Military Spouse Employment Summit. This year is very special as we have the opportunity to bring together so many friends and partners here in the room and broadcast around the globe. For 10 years, this program and the people who have been a part of its staff, its volunteers, its partners and supporters have all worked to build a coalition of the willing. They've built programs, they've conducted research, and they have rolled up their sleeves and got in the fight to combat the multifaceted challenges to military spouse employment. And today, we celebrate that work and look to the future. Before we get the program started, I'd like to take a quick moment and thank our senior leader military spouses in the room. Today, we welcome Mrs. Charlene Austin, spouse of the Secretary of Defense. Mrs. Donna Berger, spouse of the Commandant of the Marine Corps. Mrs. Molly Raymond, spouse of the Chief of Space Operations. Mrs. Shireen Brown, spouse of the Chief of Staff of the Air Force. Mrs. Stacy Black, the spouse of the Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps. And Mrs. Maria McConville, spouse of the Chief of Staff of the Army. And I'd like to make a very special welcome to the 2021 Bonnie Amos Impact Award for Lifetime Achievement, Mrs. Susie Schwartz. And now, before I let Eric talk, I'd like every military spouse in the room to stand up and be recognized. All right, it's going to be a great day. And now it is my pleasure to introduce to you the president of Hiring Our Heroes, Eric Eversole.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. See, Brian taught you well. Thank you very much. Look, we're very excited to host today's event and to do so in person. And it's, obviously a very beautiful day. So the spouse team really knocked it out of the park today. Beautiful venue. And we're really excited to be able to talk about the work that's in front of us when it comes to military spouse employment. But before I get started with a couple of brief remarks and we get into the program, let me start by thanking Brian and his team and the entire HOH team for making today happen. About 70% of Team HOH are military spouses. We're very proud of that fact. And I know better than anyone that they are as resilient of a group as anybody I've ever met in my life. They know how to get the job done. They know how to make impact. And importantly, they understand what drives our mission and how to get the job done. Liz O'Brien, our former senior director of the Military Spouse Program, reminded me, and just to talk about resiliency for a second, a couple of years ago when we were getting ready to kick off this event, about 5 minutes before the event, she came in and said, "Hey, Eric, we're gonna have to make some adjustments to the schedule." And I'm like, what do you mean? She goes, "Our keynote speaker got hit by a bus." Literally. And it's awful, right? But the team was able to rally around and come up with a program and deal with that adversity and change very quickly. And to really ultimately get the mission accomplished. So to Team HOH, all the military spouses on our team, thank you for allowing our organization to shine each and every day. Let me also thank our sponsors for today. Our presenting sponsor for today's program, USAA. Our platinum sponsors, Amazon, Comcast, NBC Universal, Deloitte, Google.org, Prudential, T-Mobile, and Toyota. And last but certainly not least, our gold sponsors, Caliber Home Loans and Capital One. We couldn't accomplish our very important mission without your all's incredible support. So thank you from Team HOH. You know, over the last couple of years, we've seen and experienced a lot of change in our country, especially as it relates to our military and our nation's workforce. From our workforce perspective, we've seen the creation of remote work opportunities over the last couple of years. We've seen new online training programs to help Americans get the skills that they need to be successful in the workforce. And we've seen one of the hottest job markets in our nation's history. Yet too many military spouses continue to struggle as they search for careers. And we know the stories, and we'll hear some of them today, and we know the challenges. And for many of you in this room, you've lived it. Today, we must move past words. Today, we must commit to action and impact. We need to leverage the incredible tools and the resources to empower military spouses on their career journeys. We need to work collectively across both the private and the public sectors. And we need to ultimately deliver careers that our military spouses so richly deserve. Today is the day, and the time is now. We have an absolutely great program today, one that's both inspirational and one that creates opportunities for action. And at the end of the day, we can do this. We live in the greatest country in this world, and we can do this for military spouses. We have to. We couldn't be more thankful to everyone's commitment to this mission and your support. Thank you to our military spouse leaders that are here. Thank you. And all of our corporate partners. Be well and God bless.
Dexter, Chief of Staff and Vice President of Operations and Communications for Hiring Our Heroes. I'd like to thank each of you for being here today with us, both in the room and virtually. Regardless of whether you are a business committed to diversifying your workforce, a stakeholder working toward implementing actionable steps to improve economic opportunity for military families, or a military spouse yourself determined to pursue your career goals, we have an amazing panel of drivers here to share not only the progress that's been made, but more importantly, as Eric mentioned, how much more work is yet to be done. So with that, I'd like to start by asking our panelists to introduce themselves, and we'll just go down the line.
All right, good afternoon. Elizabeth O'Brien, CEO of Freedom Learning Group.
Hi everyone, Laura Schmiegel, SVP, Orion Talent.
Hi everybody, David Treacher, Deputy Director of Government Relations, National Military Family Association.
Hi folks, Amy Schwartz, Senior People Partner at Articulate and lead of the Cannon Air Force Base Military Spouse Professional Network.
Thank you, and thank you all for being here with us today. Laura, I'd like to set the stage a little bit and give a little bit of history about the work that has been done for military spouse employment. Take us back to 2012, when it was identified, right, 10 years ago, that military spouse programs were necessary. They need this work needed to be separated from veteran employment work. Tell us a little bit about the origin of the program, how it evolved, and the vision to provide better opportunities for military spouses.
So in 2012, I was given probably the biggest gift in my life. At that point, I had been a military spouse since 1998. Over the course of a career, my family did 9 moves. I had just as many jobs, 3 combat deployments, 2 children, and after 4 bar exams that I took and passed, still couldn't find a job. So I was living probably a pretty typical military spouse life. It sucked. I was not enjoying that aspect of my life. And then I was given a tremendous opportunity by one Kevin Schmiegel, who asked me if I was interested in coming and building a military spouse program at his new project, Hiring Our Heroes, at the U.S. Chamber. And of course, I jumped at the chance to put my money where my own mouth was and hopefully not have more spouses like me go through what I went through. So in January of 2012, we launched, and I knew at the time that we needed to do 3 things really to make sure that the program succeeded. 1, we needed the backing of the military, because these are active duty spouses. You can't reach them unless the military knows you're coming. 2, we needed to raise awareness. Back at the time, there were very few people that were talking about military spouse employment. There was a lot of talk about veteran unemployment. It was a big issue. Hardly anyone was talking about military spouses at all. And then 3, we needed resources. If we were going to build programs, I didn't want to just be a junior, like a junior to Hiring Our Hero senior. We needed legitimate resources to build programs. So Kevin did me a huge favor my first week on the job by throwing me into the senior and COCOM spouse conference with Deanie Dempsey and all of the chief of staff spouses and COCOM spouses, where I pitched a new program and asked for their blessing. And I don't think my voice had even trailed off before they said, absolutely, what do you need? Susie Schwartz was in that room. Where are you, Susie? Linda Odierno, Deanie Dempsey, and Bonnie Amos. And thanks to them, we got access to any military installation in the country that we wanted access to. We started on our second pillar, which is to build awareness. We needed to let the spouses know something existed just for them. We used our network. We all know spouses are good at networking. We got the word out about our first 2 events in Washington, D.C. and Fort Hood, Texas. We thought that would really prove the model, 1 big city, 1 typical military installation. And we carpet bombed every person we knew, every network we had, and those 2 first events had over 1,000 spouses. That obviously brought some awareness to employers who saw huge military spouse hiring fairs and opportunities to hire really good talent because everyone in there impressed the employers that were in the room. So we had the awareness piece. And then finally, I got permission from my boss to build a separate spouse council at the chamber. And, within a few weeks, we had a core of companies like USAA, like La Quintains and Suites, who gave us resources so that we could really kick it off. And building that awareness was really key. We had 40 events all over the country. They typically got 400 or 500 spouses and up, and that was the beginning of all of it. We knew once we had the awareness, the programs would follow, and as long as we had a really awesome leader to succeed me and make sure those programs happened.
Which you more or less just passed that to Liz. But again, that awareness piece is key. And again, this is a key demonstration of the need for public, private, and nonprofit partnership. It required support from Department of Defense. It required the business community. It required the other nonprofits supporting military families. But Liz, so now that Laura has set the stage regarding the awareness and how that advocacy really helped reach the greater audiences, talk to us about the transformation from awareness to action. You've galvanized the communities. You've got this awareness campaign out there so people understand that this is an issue. Thinking about what Laura had mentioned in terms of kind of the rule of threes, you need 3 things. What were let's start with, what were the first 3 actionable steps that you saw needed to be taken to really start moving this?
Yeah. Well, first I had to figure out how to evolve from a college basketball coach into workforce development. So that in itself was a process. But I have over and over said again that we were able to expand the military spouse program. We were able to be responsive. We were able to build programming to meet folks in the communities that they were in side by side with our MCAC members because of the model that Laura built and created. And so it really set us up, that foundational piece set us up for long-term success. And one of the first pieces I really thought about was we have all of these hiring events, but what happens to a military spouse like myself who moved 7 times in 8 years, and I come to town after that event came through? And I was like, oh, well, we'll start a chapter-based organization. And then I thought, oh, nope. Haley Outlaut already started that with Donna and Lauren and In Gear Career. And so let's throw a curveball out there and reach out to Amanda, who's in the audience today. I love everybody comes back all the time. And that's the power of the network, right? And so we went through probably the first merger acquisition of nonprofits because we felt that chapter-based experience was really important. Let's have a presence all year. And from there, help people professionally develop, help them go through that workforce development. And from there, we launched the MCs, which brought our folks in communities, match the employers with the company, with the military spouses that are there, and also be able to lean in on policy, leverage chambers across the country as well. And so you can start to see each of the building blocks that happened. And I think one of the greatest power of HOH and the military spouse program is our ability to respond to ever-evolving climate, right? Everything changes every year. Could we have ever predicted a pandemic? Absolutely not. But the model of the program, the way it was built, was able to evolve very quickly and continue to meet folks on the ground. But really, for me, as I look back, I think one of the most brilliant and impactful pieces, is that my ride?
It is, yes.
Especially for me, at Freedom Learning Group, I sit as CEO, and our social mission is to hire and train military spouses. And we have a hire, train, deploy model. And a lot of that inspiration comes from what I learned at HOH and what Crystal built through the Military Spouse Fellowship Program. And so I was able to take all the pieces and really leverage a lot of what Crystal's done and bring it into our own ecosystem at FLG. And it's been wildly successful. And so the launching and the creation of the fellowship program really was the piece that took the military spouse program to a whole nother level. And so that idea that you can take military spouses and embed them in a company is game changer. It is an absolute game changer. Had I had that opportunity as a college basketball coach to come actually work at HOH for 6 or 8 weeks, there's a ton I would have learned before I even hit the ground running. But ultimately, people would have seen the talent, the drive, the passion to the mission. And so those are the pieces for me built on the foundation that Laura created that really allowed the military spouse program impact across the country, hire, train, deploy, get military spouses into companies across America.
Thank you. Your ride is here. So do you need to go? Sorry. Okay. Yeah, so again, what Liz has really touched on is that need for the public-private partnerships, the large ecosystem to really come together as a coalition. And speaking of the networks, Amy is one of our network leads. Now that Liz has kind of mapped out a little bit of the HOH ecosystem and really the broader ecosystem, for military families around the country, there's certainly not a one-size-fits-all model, which is why it requires real commitment for collaboration. But can you speak a little bit to how the ecosystem helped put you on a positive career trajectory? Let us hear a little bit of your story.
Absolutely. I'm a product of Hiring Our Heroes programs and all of the work of the people on this stage. When I first engaged with Hiring Our Heroes, I went to a military spouse professional network event in Nevada. I had just moved to Nevada, given up a beloved job to move there, and expected the same experience that I had had after other military moves. 9 months of unemployment, move into a role where there may have been a little bit of underemployment at play, and prove myself just in time to have to give it up and move to the next place. A lot of us have been there. I saw how many military spouses stood up in the room today. But at my first meeting of the Military Spouse Professional Network, I met a recruiter who connected me with my dream job in Nevada, and Hiring Our Heroes cut my time unemployed after a move in half. And they continued to support me after connecting me with that role. I mentioned underemployment earlier. I realized after about 3 months in that dream job that I was a little bit underpaid and undertitled for the work that I was doing. So I went to the Military Spouse Professional Network, and it was those members, those fellow military spouses who coached me and gave me the encouragement to be able to successfully negotiate for a raise and a promotion. And then 2.5 years later, when I found out I was moving to Cannon Air Force Base, I was a little bit nervous that there wouldn't be a role commensurate with my skills in the local economy. So the Military Spouse Professional Network and Hiring Our Heroes folks, Amanda, who's in the room, helped me again pitch for my company to allow me to work remotely full-time. And I've been doing that for 2.5 years in New Mexico. So after my second move with Hiring Our Heroes programs, I completely eliminated any unemployment post-move. Hiring Our Heroes is one of those things that's so good when you figure out that the programs are available, you have to pass it on. So I started the Cannon Military Spouse Professional Network 2 years ago. We're now 700 members strong, and we've helped dozens of spouses in the local community find opportunities and capitalize on the remote work movement that sprung up in the pandemic.
That is incredible. Who has heard of Cannon Air Force Base before today, right? And this is all too common, finding ourselves in these oddly remote locations. And again, I also lived in Nevada. Who goes to Reno, Nevada? Who does the Army send to Reno, Nevada? Nobody. And so I'm dating myself a little bit. This is when In-Gear Career was in existence. I was so excited. I said, great, I'm going to find a network of military spouses in Reno, Nevada. I'm going to stand up a chapter. There was one other spouse in Reno, Nevada at the time. So I won't say what year that was. Anyhow, this speaks to how, again, just that grassroots engagement, that community building, that peer-to-peer network is so impactful. So glad to hear that. David, my understanding is you also leveraged the HOH ecosystem to network, and I shouldn't say just HOH, the Big Ten ecosystem, to network and prepare to relaunch your career as in a new country. So tell us about what you encountered along the way.
Sure, absolutely. And I guess my story indicates that the military spouse population is diverse. As you might have guessed from my accent, I'm not originally from these parts. I'm from New Zealand, and I previously had a 14-year career serving as a diplomat in the New Zealand Foreign Service. My active duty husband, Army husband John, and I met when I was stationed in Hawaii, and I was serving at the New Zealand Consulate General as Deputy Consul General. To stay with John, I had to give up my diplomatic career because it was not compatible with the military lifestyle and the frequent moves. It was a really tough decision for me to leave that career behind after 14 years, and it felt like a real leap of faith because my career was on an upwards trajectory and my identity was wrapped up in my profession. We moved to the DC area in June last year. In the middle of the pandemic, I was struggling to understand my new identity as a military spouse. There were times when I felt like an outsider, as a foreign-born spouse, as a male spouse, and as a member of the LGBTQ community. I had never lived in the continental US before, so moving to a new place, familiarizing myself with a new culture, reinventing myself, building new networks from scratch, and trying to work out my next career move and reinvent myself, it felt like a pretty heavy burden to be going through all of that. I was determined to make the best of my situation, and I figured if there's anywhere in the world where a former foreign diplomat can find a job, it's in the DC area. I reached out to every resource I could, including HOH's Amplify program. Amplify was a really empowering experience for me, and it came to me at a time when I need it most, when I was starting to feel a little lost. I was concerned that my previous career as a foreign diplomat was too niche, and I wasn't sure how I was going to reinvent myself. Through the Amplify program, I connected with a group of other career-focused military spouses. I felt really seen and heard. The networking was invaluable. The guest speakers were inspiring. The program opened my eyes to a range of new opportunities that I hadn't necessarily considered or was even aware that they existed, such as careers in Salesforce and the Corporate Fellowship Program. Even though I didn't ultimately go down those paths, I was incredibly grateful to know that there are an abundance of different opportunities out there for military spouses. So I took a strategic approach to mapping my transferable skills that I had developed as a diplomat and identifying what type of roles would be a good fit. I was lucky enough to be matched with Brian as a mentor through Amplify. Brian told me about a job opportunity at the National Military Family Association, and it turned out that everything I'd been told, that the key to finding a job in the DC area is through networking. It turned out that was true. The job hadn't even been posted yet. Brian helped me with my resume and cover letter. It was my first time looking for jobs within the US, and the job market in every country is different. So having someone help me understand the expectations was really useful. And the rest is history. I got the job. I also attended an MSP and networking event. And at that stage, I submitted my application, was waiting to hear back. And it was really useful to attend that MSP and networking event and meet other spouses who worked in similar areas of advocacy, and even one of the teammates of the team I ended up working in. So that gave me a real leg up. And so I'm now a Deputy Director of Government Relations at the National Military Family Association, an organization that works to support military families. And my role specifically includes family financial issues and spouse employment. So I bring my own personal experience as a spouse going through the shift that many spouses faced, the challenge of reinventing ourselves. I bring that perspective to my advocacy on the Hill when I am advocating and seeking support for pieces of key legislation that will benefit spouses and improve the outlook for spouse employment.
Thank you. Clearly, both stellar examples, not just of the challenges that we're very aware of, but how they have overcome those, really plugged into the networks and built broader communities and continue to advocate. And that's what keeps this momentum going. We're getting short on time, and I know we are going to get the hook. So I want to, Liz, just, again, we've been here before. We've had this conversation. The fact that we're here still talking about this proves the commitment of everybody in this room, everybody online, everybody engaged in this work, that there's still so much work to be done. That's very positive that there is still this continued commitment. Yet the statistics of military spouse employment haven't changed. It's been hovering between 22 and 24% for over 10 years. Why has that needle not moved? What needs to happen, and who needs to do this work?
Every single person that's in this room and every single person that's outside of this room. And so when I think about why hasn't it moved, it has moved, right? The overall number hasn't moved, but when we think about where Laura started trying to rally advocacy, awareness, education, and then I think about my own journey, 7 moves, 8 years, college basketball coach, no access to safe, affordable childcare in Hawaii at the height of the wars. And I'm taking my 3-day-old to college basketball practice because I have nowhere to leave her, and no resources available, no family. And then I hear David's story as he moves, one move and able to leverage all the programs that exist. So we are advancing the needle. What we need to see is the overall number drop down. So we know that the programs exist. We know when people can access them and are aware of them, that they are successful. But what do we truly need? There are certain things we can't change. We are a population that is 92% female. So we know that male military spouses are less employed, right? Spend shorter amounts of time unemployed than military spouses do. So there's a tie there to the 92% female military spouses. We can't change that. But what we can do is be willing to stand in the fray and be uncomfortable, right? We ask military spouses, we ask families over and over again to carry the burden of our nation's wars in an all-volunteer force. And the least that we can do is go into an office in corporate America and say, I want to track statistics. I want to find a way to track military spouses. Let me sit with the legal team. Ask people to be uncomfortable for 5 minutes, for 1 hour, for 2 hours. And then if you can't advance the needle internally for hiring, put us in your supply chain, right? Take the model that Instant Teams has built and created where they put military spouses to work for corporate America. That's one way to get military spouses in. Hire FLG as part of your supply chain to build content and curriculum. There are creative ways to put military spouses to work over and over again, but we as a country have to be willing to be uncomfortable in the same way that we ask our families over and over again to be uncomfortable.
Thank you. Lots of takeaways there. So in the interest of time, I'm going to say, Laura, I'd like you to build on that. And then David and Amy, what can military spouses do to improve conditions for their peers now and in the future? So Laura?
So the only thing I would add to what we can't change is the fact that we're moving our military families on average every 2 years for a 20-year career. And until that changes, you're simply not going to get that number to move much. Maybe we can play around the margins, maybe we can eat into it, but as long as that's happening, we're all going to be here trying to make things better. So absent a change in DoD policy, I know you're all working on that, right? Just kidding. I'm kidding. Absent a change in DoD policy, it's up to employers and it's up to spouses. And what I found in my 7 years at Booz Allen Hamilton, and Tracy Friedman, who's here from Booz Allen, is a perfect example of this, is if you get enough buy-in from leadership at a company to just track spouses, find out who they are, and then get out of their way, they will tell you what they need and they will do it if you let them. At Booz Allen, Tracy and her friends fought for resources. They fought just to share with each other the resources. And the leadership ended up creating what I think is the very first military spouse BRG in this country. And they grew to several hundred within just a couple of years. They got leadership endorsement, and we did almost nothing. The leadership did almost nothing. The spouses did it themselves. And all of a sudden, leaders were talking about that and getting on the BRG and giving them jobs and then bragging about it. And then Booz Allen got awards for their military spouse program. And it's because the leadership saw that the spouses knew exactly what they needed. They listened to them and they gave them what they needed. And it's just a tremendous success story. And I'm so glad Tracy's here today to accept a victory lap for that, because she still isn't quitting. She's amazing. So that's what I would say.
Get more actionable steps to take, right? So David and Amy, what can military spouses do to improve conditions for their...
One issue, I think, is visibility and educating employers and coworkers. I believe that being loud and proud as military spouses in the workforce and our communities can raise awareness of how much military spouses do bring to the table. By telling our stories of what military spouse life is like, we can increase understanding and hopefully empathy among employers and coworkers, which in turn opens the door for them to support us more. And finally, I believe advocacy is a very powerful tool. We do have a voice, and it's important that we use it. Support the advocacy work of organizations like NMFA, MOA, Hiring Our Heroes, MSPN. Call or write your Congress member, show up in your local community, and tell your story.
I love all of the action steps that y'all are calling out for employers and advocates. And I also think there's work for military spouses to do grassroots in our own communities. Sometimes all a military spouse who's struggling with un- and underemployment needs is for someone else who's a military spouse to look them in the eye and say, I have been where you are. I know how you're feeling. I know those adverse impacts to thriving that Hiring Our Heroes has proven through research that come from under and unemployment. And I can tell you there's hope on the other side because I've experienced it. That type of empathy and community building within our grassroots, our bases, our installations is incredibly empowering, valuable, and important. There are many ways to do that with Hiring Our Heroes as well. You can volunteer with your local military spouse professional network. You can start one, call me, I can help you figure out how to do it. It's not that hard. You can volunteer as a mastermind mentor for Amplify. There's many ways you can give back to your community internally within the military installation that you're at.
Thank you all. Again, it's perfect example. Sometimes it just starts with one, but then it starts with one network, and then it starts with one community and goes from there. So the grassroots engagement, the boots on the ground, that's the work that needs to continue. As you corrected me, Liz, yes, we have made so many improvements to this issue. However, there is still so much more to be done. I want to thank you all for joining us today. And you all have heard from pioneers in the space who have done incredible work to lay this foundation. But again, the foundation is laid. We're just getting started on really building the rest of this infrastructure. And I would ask each of you to take away something that you can do to really make a difference for military spouses and military families in your communities, nationwide, in your organizations, whatever it may be. Thank you all for joining us today, and thank you for being here.
Please welcome to the stage the Vice President for Rural Markets at T-Mobile, Terrence Clover.
Good afternoon, everybody. So first, thank you for that introduction. And it's such an honor to just be here today. I first want to thank Eric, everybody at Hiring for Heroes, and everybody that's in attendance on today. My name is Terrence Clover, the Vice President for Small Markets and Rural Areas for T-Mobile. And I'm so excited to have the opportunity to award the Volunteer of the Year Impact Award. Military and military spouse employment is near and dear to my heart. As a veteran of the United States Army myself, I'm so excited to be able to talk to you about the struggles that our military and military spouses go through. I've seen personally what our military spouses go through and the work that they need to put in. I thought my job was difficult, but to really understand what our military spouses have to go through, being the financial planner, the mover, the full-time parent when you're away or out on deployment, military spouses absolutely do it all. And I'm so grateful for the work that they put in to ensure that we can continue to do our jobs when we're doing our military service. The challenge is real. And everyone knows that military spouses need the support of community in order to continue to move forward and progress while the service members are away. And that's why I'm so excited to be a part of T-Mobile. Because at T-Mobile, we recognize that community, personal advocacy, and general support is necessary in order for military spouses to get the support that they need. T-Mobile understands that every military spouse and our service members and families need someone to speak out for them, to be a voice for them. And the unemployment gap is disproportionately impacted our military. T-Mobile is a proud partner with organizations like Hiring Our Heroes because we've committed to hiring 10,000 veterans and veteran spouses by the end of 2023. And we're so excited about that commitment. It's commitments like that that make us different, and organizations like ours that are committed to doing the work necessary to position themselves to take care of the ones that take care of us. This pandemic has changed the job landscape of millions because of COVID-19. The military community is feeling it as well. Military spouses in particular, as was mentioned, have seen unemployment rates as high as 30 to 38% at times. And so there's more that still needs to be done. It's not going to be easy to change those numbers, but we're committed to the task. And as an organization, we've already reached over halfway to the 10,000 employee or veteran and military spouse commitment that we've set off for. That's what makes this event so special. It's because organizations like T-Mobile and others are ready to stand up and be a hero for our heroes. But I could go on and on about the things that T-Mobile is doing. But today I'm here and excited to honor one specific person for their service and dedication to others. The 2022 Military Spouse Volunteer of the Year Impact Award recognizes an individual who has made great contributions and strengthened and empowered his or her community and military spouses in those communities. So I'd like to take a moment and a few seconds just to read a couple of excerpts from the nominations that was put in their honor. The first one says, from early on in their career, this person volunteered and led the efforts to bring military spouses to our firm, putting it on the map as an employer of choice for military spouse talent and empowered other companies to join in. Another says, prior to her incredible work, there was no awareness of military spouses employed at the firm. No way to identify or to track military spouses and employees, no resources, no inclusive language to speak to these employees, and no understanding of the unique needs of this transient subset of our employees. She fixed all that and more. Another one says, through grassroots efforts for change that backed in 2013 when she and two others landed together in Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, because of their spouses' military orders, with different backgrounds, skill sets, certifications, these employees used their collective ingenuity to support each other and advocate for resources for all. They focused on developing practical career resources and programming to support career mobility for employees, and operated under the philosophy that if we could help even one military spouse stay with the firm as they relocate, it would all be worth the effort. The final one says this: Tracy Friedman is nominated with my strongest possible endorsement for Hiring Our Heroes Volunteer Impact Award. Tracy truly epitomizes Booz Allen Hamilton's purpose: empower people to change the world. Tracy has accomplished this like no other in the military spouse community. If you could please all join me on today in congratulating the 2022 Military Spouse Volunteer of the Year Impact Award winner, Miss Tracy Friedman.
Please welcome the Senior Manager for Human Capital Practice at Deloitte, Sarah Smith.
Okay, my favorite topic is coming up next on future of work. It's going to be a great conversation around building work environments that promote racial and gender diverse workforces and harness the vital link between wellness and the ability to flourish. As one of our future of work leaders at Deloitte, we are very proud to be a sponsor of this summit today. Not only are we at the forefront of helping our clients across the government and public sectors tackle the future of work, but we as an organization are always challenging ourselves to think about how can we build world-class, diverse, and inclusive workplace ecosystems. Ecosystems where our workforce can connect, collaborate, and co-locate from anywhere, which is incredibly important for the large community of military spouses that we have at Deloitte ourselves, who we know are always moving 18 months to 2 years. In addition, in 2016, Deloitte launched the Military Spouse Initiative, to support, attract, and retain military spouses through transition support and career development in order to increase the readiness of our armed forces. I'm proud to say that we now have more than 300 active duty military spouses and more than 900 veteran spouses spanning all 5 businesses at Deloitte, of which I am one, a combat veteran spouse. Through our military spouse initiative, they can lean on each other and utilize Deloitte resources to not just have a job, but to actually have a career. Deloitte sponsors military spouses to work from anywhere, and we mean it, and allow them the opportunity to have a career despite the changes of being part of a military family. And I'm very proud to say that I have 3 military spouses on 2 of my project teams, and they are incredible. I would now like to introduce our moderator for the next panel, Angie Mioli, Senior Vice President of Enterprise Initiatives at CVS Health. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Angie Mioli, Senior Vice President at CVS Health, and I'm honored to be here today to join in this program and to have a discussion about the future of work. At CVS Health, we're on a mission to create a differentiated experience for healthcare, and really that's bringing heart and health to all consumers of diverse backgrounds, diverse ethnicities in our communities and everywhere that we live. We recognize the diverse workforce is an important backbone to the strength of our success. And I'm proud to say that since 2015 at CVS Health, we've hired over 11,000 military spouses into our company. Thank you. And for me personally, this became a mission when I hired my first vice president, who was a military spouse, Sarah. Before hiring Sarah, I think I had the perspective that many civilians have, that the military just takes care of things. And when I hired Sarah, Sarah has an active duty spouse, and she started sharing with me all of the challenges that she was enduring. And some of those challenges, I came to learn, were imposed by CVS. So it was something that I could immediately have some impact on. So I'm excited to be here today. Looking forward to the discussion. And without further ado, I'd like to have my esteemed panel introduce themselves. Maria?
Hi, Angie. I'm Maria McConville. I am an Army veteran. I'm Army spouse of 34 years. Jimmy is the Chief of Staff of the Army, and we've moved 22 times, and I've changed jobs about 13 or 14 times. I'm also an Army mother. All 3 of our children are on active duty, serving in the Army, as well as our son-in-law. And I will say that our son's wife, our daughter-in-law, is employed by Deloitte, and they are serving in Singapore for a year. And Deloitte worked really hard to get her an international working visa, so she's able to continue her work in Deloitte while they're in Singapore for the year. So.
So my name is Jay Kareem. I'm with T-Mobile. I'm the Director of Talent Acquisition.
Rob Barea, Vice President with Prudential and also retired Army Warrant Officer.
Thank you all. All right, well, let's go ahead and get started. So first, Maria, I'm going to start with you. Your professional background as a registered dietitian and a public community health expert is a critical lens to the discussion about the future of work. There is this elusive concept of work-life balance and employee well-being. I know you strive for and mentor Army spouses about holistic health and wellness. Can you tell us how you personally strive for work-life balance, and then how the last few years have shaped wellness in the work environment and what that means for military spouses?
Sure, thank you. That's a lot. Well, I have worked as a dietitian for over 35 years, initially in the clinical realm. So I was working with patients with disease states, right? So a lot of sick people. then through many job changes, thanks to the Army, I transitioned over into wellness. So focusing more, not so much on once you're already sick, but how to keep people well. Got very interested in the wellness arena. I was also able to get certified as a spouse master resilience trainer through the Army's resiliency program. And then most recently, for the last 10 or 11 years, I've been working in corporate wellness. So it's really given me a lens to see holistically from a dietitian and fitness trainer standpoint how we need to treat health holistically. And so I work really hard with patients, with my family, with those that I get to mentor about holistic health and wellness. And we know that the mind, body, and soul are all connected. And I like what you said about CVS focus on health and the heart, right? Because as a dietitian, when we eat, yes, we eat for physiological hunger, but we also eat to nourish our soul, right? So think about those Thanksgiving foods that we all enjoy. Think about those foods that bring back memories of our childhood, or think about on a cold, blustery day, that first taste of that nice warm soup. And, that's not just nourishing our body, but it's nourishing our soul as well. And, how many of us exercise not just for the physical aspects, but for the mental aspects, right? And so many of our lifestyle choices impact all of our well-being. And I think that that's really important, that we recognize how when we make lifestyle choices, that it can affect us in mind, body, and soul. So when we're trying to balance eating right and balance exercise, that's hard enough, right, in our busy lifestyles. Now we have to throw in balancing work-life balance. So work is different to all of us. I do work. I work for the Consortium of Health and Military Performance, but I also work a lot for the Army, unpaid work. I volunteer a lot of time on behalf of the Army. Prior to this, we were at the Senior Leadership Development Seminar, and I was speaking to the spouses that are there and talking to them also about work-life balance. So I do a lot of volunteer time with the Army. And of course, 3 children and a grandson who I try to spend a lot of time with. As my daughter and her husband are both military. So how do you balance all of that? Well, what I've had to learn over the years is it's not about managing time, right? Because we all have 24 hours in a day. We can't give us more time. But what I've learned is I have to manage my energy. Because when you learn to manage your energy, you're doing things that bring out the best in you. So often we do things to fill up our plates that don't give us energy. It drains us, right? So we get up in the morning and we think, oh, I have to go to this meeting, or I got to do this for work, or I have to do this, and I don't really want to do it, right? So when I would do those type things, I realized that I wasn't giving any value to that organization, and I certainly wasn't reaping any value from it. I tell spouses all the time, as a volunteer, yes, you can add value to organizations, but it's okay to reap value in return, right? It can be a win-win situation. If you're doing things just because you feel obligated to or taking up a seat, that's not going to energize you. And at the end of the day, you're going to be overwhelmed, you're going to be stressed, you're going to have low energy. So I've really learned to take on those volunteer opportunities or work opportunities that will energize me, that I know where I can add value and I know where I can reap value in return, and that fills up my gas tank, right? So when I can feel really good about what I'm doing and have good energy doing it, then I'm so much more productive. I learned the hard way doing the things that I thought I was supposed to be doing, maybe as a military spouse, that were actually burning me out. I wasn't a very good helpmate to anyone. And when I kind of learned to manage my energy and do the things that were important to me, I became a better helpmate to my husband and to the Army and to my kids. So I think in this day and age, what the pandemic has taught us over the last couple of years is that we can work effectively, but it doesn't have to be 9 to 5 sitting at a desk, right? So I've been working from home for the last 11 years. So when the pandemic hit, it's like, well, welcome to my life. I've been doing this for a lot of years, and you can be productive. I think one of the things that we've learned from the pandemic is autonomy. We need to treat employees autonomously. We need to let them figure out what their best work-life balance looks like. When when the pandemic hit, I was consulting for a corporate wellness company, and overnight they had to file for bankruptcy because nobody was at work doing corporate wellness, right? So at first I thought, oh, this is kind of fun. I'm not working. I have all this time, but it was during the pandemic. You couldn't do anything. After about 3 weeks, I said to my husband, I'm really feeling insignificant. And he said, what do you mean? You're significant to me. You're significant to the kids. And I said, but I'm not significant to myself. And that's where I think a lot of military spouses feel the same way. It's, a job, a career, it's great for your paycheck, but we like to have purpose. We like to be able to use our passion to do the things that are important to us. We need to have autonomy to feel good about ourselves. And so what I would say, where the workforce is going, especially with corporate wellness, is treat your employees autonomously. If they're good employees, let them figure out what that work looks like and what their work-life balance looks like, because everybody's is going to be different.
Thank you. And I love what you said also about just thinking about what brings you joy and purpose. I think that's so important in overall wellness. To your point, with the pandemic, we've been shown, we've learned that there are so many different ways now that we can work, which I think also opens the doors to opportunities to military spouses who are not now traditionally in the same location for months on end. It really gives us that opportunity, to your point, look differently at each individual unique person for what they can bring to the table. Thank you, Maria. So Jay, T-Mobile is currently in the middle of a 5-year equity and action plan, which I love. I'm excited to hear about. It's essentially a plan to further drive an inclusive and equitable culture at T-Mobile and how the company is investing and advocating for communities in need. Can you share your perspective on how you think this type of approach strategically supports employee initiatives with our community efforts that will shape future corporate culture?
Absolutely. So I think one of the key things to all of this work is to have commitments that you truly believe in. Don't make commitments so that you can put them on a poster. Don't make commitments so you can put them on a website, and that way you can influence people to come work for you. That's not going to work for you. It might work in a way that it's going to give you some good media, some good marketing, but truly it's not going to make an impact in your organization. So I think that's key. You heard Terrence, my peer, talk a little bit earlier about our 10,000 commitment to hire 10,000 veterans, military spouses. T-Mobile's Equity in Action plan is grounded in our pillars for talent and culture, in our diversity, talent, and culture. We have created pathways to how we recruit, how we retain and develop our talent, overall, how we invest in the communities that we do business in and the communities we support. One of those key investments has been to improve the divide when it comes to wireless access and career opportunities in those communities that need it the most. That's imperative. If people don't have access to wireless, which a large amount of this country still does not have access to wireless, it's troubling for kids to be able to do their homework. I mean, if you have children or you know children, a lot of the work today is done on an iPad, on a device. That's how the culture of our schools has changed. That's how the cultures of our colleges have changed. And without access, you're really behind there. And there's a lot of communities today that don't have good access, that don't have the ability to search for jobs. If you look at a lot of employers, there's assessments, there's a way to fill out applications. Everything is done online. If you don't have access, how are you going to be able to do that? So that's one of the commitments we've made. It's Project 10. It's called Project 10 Million. It's to be able to provide access in the communities that need it the most. It's to help people that need access to get that access. And that's a commitment we're proud of. The other thing that I would recommend, one thing that I've learned, I've been in recruiting for my entire career, hire the people that are passionate about this work. Don't put people in these roles that don't understand this space. Don't put people in these roles that don't have a truly vested connection to this work, because those are the people that really carry this for your organization. I'm proud to say we've done that at T-Mobile. I know a lot of the organizations here, the people that I've spoken to, I can tell how important it is. And I would encourage everybody here to be advocates for that and continue to hire those people that really are passionate in this space. And that's my thought. Thank you, Angie.
Thank you very much. All right, Rob. So Prudential was founded on the belief that financial security should be within the reach of everyone. And we know how important it is to have financial stability as part of just overall even health wellness. Prudential is not only a sponsor of the Military Spouse Program at Hiring Our Heroes, you're also a sponsor of the program's Military Spouse Professional Network, specifically which helps spouses build community and connection they need to grow, advance, and begin their careers. We know the military spouse population is roughly 92% female, and we know that military spouses are often quite underemployed. Can you talk about how you see the connection between professional community and the ability to build financial security, and how employers can ensure that they are supporting women and military spouses adequately and equitably?
So thank you for the question. And, before I begin, I just want to say a quick shout out to all the military spouses. Me being a veteran after 24 and a half years, my wife being every step of the way from the recruiting piece all the way to now. I definitely understand the challenges firsthand that you have experienced, and more importantly, in my role, I'm able to actually address those. So I really want to say thank you for all you do and have done for our military. Since 1875, Prudential has demonstrated a clear sense of responsibility to our country and community. Our vision is, how do we solve the financial challenges of an ever-changing world? And the military community is part of those communities that we want to actually help and serve. We have that long-standing commitment to our military. And in doing so, what we have done is partnered with the Department of Veteran Affairs and with an effort to not just help the spousal, but also the full military community really access our financial wellness resources and our tools, one being and a self-assessment budgeting tool, as well as other resources that we know that our military communities and as they come in and out of the military are really in need to have access to. When I remember when I was in the military myself, I had young soldiers that were doing the very best they could because of the size of the family. They needed assistance from the government. So, and that kind of translates into their future life as well. So we want to make sure they have those access to those resources to ensure they have that financial stability opportunities. But as it pertains to our military spouses, our company provides job opportunities that allow military spouses to have that career flexibility. What we heard about the previous panel, as well as some of the comments right now, is all that consistent moving, right? The locations aren't in metropolis. If you are a spouse in DC, you're in a target-rich environment. But at Fort Dix, where the nearest highway is about 30 minutes away, let alone an actual city, they won't have that same access to equity. So those are the kinds of things that we want to make sure that in our own career opportunities that we have for Prudential, that we truly have the opportunity for them to have that flexibility, but also have that rewarding career. A lot of times when we speak about offering military spouses work, it's about a side job or maybe just extra money. But that's not the case that we want to build upon. We want to make sure that individuals have that rewarding career, as well as have a future and able to grow within the organization, like Prudential and other organizations that we have here. And I want to add just one more point, because we talked about the pandemic. And the pandemic has been the true equalizer, especially in the DEI space, which we truly enjoy. But now that we're coming out of it, I think there's an opportunity for organizations to really think and double down on what it truly means, to your point, how they have have that autonomy, right? How can they be productive in their jobs? And I would say to you that I challenge all the employees within my voice is, how do you approach this new hybrid remote working style? I think if you listen to the news, Goldman Sachs and Google, they're having some troubles right now because they don't feel their employees don't feel that they have that autonomy, or they didn't sign up for this, especially if they joined during the pandemic. So employers really need to look at not just from the hybrid work perspective, but also the generational values that we're actually challenging. If you are a Generation Xer or a baby boomer, you may feel that, I haven't gotten to that corner office yet, therefore I need more people in the office. I need that face-to-face time. I need to make sure that, people are in the office and in seats. The truth of the matter is, the last 2 years, we absolutely proven that doesn't need to be the case. So how do we, again, challenge those notions, but more importantly, challenge those values, especially with those most tenured leaders who really feel that I need to see my people? So those are the things that I think as employers that we need to really challenge, and more importantly, understand how to best engage, not just for our military spouses, but for our other employees as well.
Thank you, Rob. I couldn't agree more. And I'm going to leave it with, first off, thank you to the panelists and your insights. A couple of key messages that, I took away were, One, you have to be flexible. We have to be thinking differently about how we approach the workforce. I think also, key J, hire the people that are passionate. Passion drives results. And finally, the time is now. If ever, it's now. Thank you.
Please welcome back to the stage, Brian Alvarado.
Hello again. Hello again. As Eric mentioned in his opening remarks, the work that we do every day here at Hiring Our Heroes would just not be possible without our partners in this fight. And that could not be any truer than with our friends at USAA. USAA since 2012 has been a true partner in building solutions in this important work. And today they are here once again as our presenting sponsor of our annual Military Spouse Employment Summit. And it is my privilege to introduce to you the Assistant Vice President of Military Affairs from USAA, Mr. Mike Kelly.
I love Brian, and I'm so disappointed I don't have a pocket flash today. Very disappointing. Man, there is so much good content here today, right? I mean, you are all part of that ecosystem that you heard that first panel talking about. So give yourselves a round of applause because you are in the fight. You are in the fight. All right. Also, I want to hearken back to where's Liz sitting? Right there. Something you said about what other companies can do beyond just hiring, right? You talked about buy their products, use their contracts. So I did a quick text to the retired Army colonel who runs our military family supplier diversity program. I said, hey, Wayne, how much did we spend last year on veteran-owned, service-disabled, and military spouse businesses? $59 million, right? So very excited about that. Well, thanks everybody for being here, for Hiring Our Heroes. I consider them family. In fact, Kevin and Laura, I was at the second event. I didn't make it to the first event. We met at Fort Hood, and after that, I challenged them to come back to USAA and present to our CEO and our senior executives a plan to get USAA engaged. They did that, and we have been partners ever since. So, good to see you guys. All right, it's great to see you all in person. I love getting back into the mix and seeing people put name tags on and lanyards. And thank you, senior spouses, for being here. Holly, good to see you again. We had a luncheon over at the Army Navy Club not too long ago. So thank you all for your support because that truly makes a big difference. All right, well, it is our privilege, truly, to serve as the presenting sponsor for the Military Spouse Employment Summit. And this is the 6th consecutive year that we've been sponsors. And we really are excited about celebrating a decade of work and impact in this space. We're celebrating something big as well at USAA. This is our 100th year So we were formed in 1922 by about 25 Army officers in San Antonio who couldn't get auto insurance. So they decided to insure themselves. And that's still how we operate today. So how many USA members do we have out there? Nice. All right. So you're taking care of everybody else. So thanks for your membership. And if you're having any issues, you just let me know. We'll see what we can do to help you out. I'll actually talk to Chrissy. One of our initiatives for our 100-year anniversary is a veteran entrepreneur pitch contest. In fact, they have the opportunity to win a $100,000 grand prize in San Antonio in November when we have the finals. So we're doing a series of these pitches across the country. We did Los Angeles, we did Austin, Seattle's coming, Washington, D.C. is next week. So look for information on that. If anybody wants to attend, let me know. I'm happy to get you an invite. It is amazing to see the creativity and the knowledge that these veterans and military spouses apply to creating new technologies and products that we can use at USAA to serve our members better. All right. We have been proudly engaged with HOH since its inception, and support for military spouse employment remains a top priority for us at USAA. And where did your boss go? 11, did you say 11,000 spouses? And since when? 2015. That is great. Congratulations. It is so important to make those type of commitments. And I will tell you, having been at USAA for almost 19 years and getting our military hiring program started, when I challenged our HR leadership and our CEO to actually do something about it, they were like, well, we can't say we're going to hire 10,000 spouses. Well, what if we don't make the goal? I said, it's a goal. It's a goal. And we've surpassed that. In fact, so far this year, we've hired more than 300 military spouses, and we have about 2,500 military spouses at USAA. And you'll be hearing from Chrissy Johnson, who is one of our spouses, and she leads our military spouse talent acquisition efforts. So we're very excited to be a part of this. Our long-standing relationship with Hiring Our Heroes coming on board in 2012 has made it possible. We've hosted 45 military spouse fellows at USAA. We love that program. Where's Crystal? Such a wonderful program. We love the fellowship program. Every cohort, our goal, we have 30 in the current cohort. Our goal is eventually every single open requisition at USAA should have a fellow in it, right? And we're planning on hiring 4,000 people this year. To make a difference, and I mentioned earlier that you are all part of that ecosystem. It's more than just making a commitment. It's really putting your money where your mouth is. And quite frankly, since 2018, our USAA corporate responsibility team, our philanthropic efforts, we've granted $18 million to Hiring Our Heroes to do exactly what they're doing today. So it's incredibly important for us to not only work on our hiring practices and retention practices and DE&I practices, but also to put our money where our mouth is. So I challenge you all to continue to do that. Well, in closing, I just want to share that we at USAA, along with all of you in this room, many of you who are military spouses, understand and have experienced the struggle. There's still a lot of great content, a lot of great panels still to follow. And I just want to say that it is incredibly honoring for me. It makes my heart happy to be here and to support this program. And we're going to continue to support this program. As HOH enters the next decade and we enter our next 100 years of service to the military community, I guarantee you that USAA will be there to help continue the success in this space. So thank you very much. We're glad to be here.
And now, please welcome the National Director for Military Engagement at Caliber, Brittany Bacher.
Good afternoon. It's a privilege to represent Caliber Home Loans and express our commitment to Hiring Our Heroes and military spouse employment initiatives. As a military spouse of 17 years, I've experienced personally underemployment and unemployment and the challenges that go with that. But it was Caliber Home Loans who recognized my talents and my value and asked me to join their team to help build military and veteran internal and external initiatives. It's our mission at Caliber Home Loans to help military and veteran families achieve the American dream of homeownership. And we recognize the importance employment plays in regard to achieving that dream. As a company, we can't adequately serve and support the military and veteran community without properly knowing the need of the community. It takes research to recognize specific pain points that will ultimately define how organizations will come together to develop solutions to the issues identified. This is why I'm so honored to introduce Rosemary Williams and the panel discussing the hidden cost of military spouse employment.
I love that Ben-Hur music. Makes me sit up straight. Earlier this year, Hiring Our Heroes conducted an online survey of over 4,100 military spouses, done in collaboration with Syracuse University's Institute for Veteran and Military Families, and the study was powered by First Command Financial Services. This study examined how the spouse's employment experiences, specifically unemployment, impacted their long-term financial futures. And what makes this survey unique is that it was the first survey done where the emphasis was on the spouses compared to other studies that focused on families or the service member and their perspective. So let's start with Mike Imler of First Command Financial Services. People should know that you've been in the business of supporting military families for some time. So if we were to add up this time and your time at AAFES and Air Force, how many years?
Close to 35.
Oh my, okay.
I'm not as old as I look.
Yeah, I don't remember 35 years ago. All right, so tell us why it was important for First Command to partner with Hiring Our Heroes on this study, and what do the results mean specifically to First Command?
Thank you, Rosemary. First of all, I just want to say thank you to Hiring Our Heroes and how proud we are to be able to partner with Hiring Our Heroes and IVMF on this research. And I would especially like to give a shout out to Haseko for doing some great work behind the scenes. And so she has just been the glue that's kind of brought all this together.
Can you give us a wave, Haseko?
Stand up.
Okay. For short people everywhere, that's not funny.
Yeah.
And I shouldn't say that. The first 400 times, it's hilarious.
Okay.
Good.
So, but we've really been, this topic came up in some discussions about a year ago where we were discussing some of the impacts to military spouses in their employment and underemployment. And it came to light that a lot of spouses experience frequent job moves, which is no surprise, but in the process, they were not able to maintain vested retirement plans or benefits with one employer or multiple employers. So when we heard about this, we asked if we could work with Hiring Our Heroes, and they graciously accepted. So we're at First Command acutely aware of these challenges because we hire military spouses as advisors, administrative staff in over 175 offices around the world. Most of them are located close to military installations. We also have our home office in Fort Worth. We have another 600 to 700 employees. So we know what it's like and what the military spouses face when it comes to this hidden impact. And we thought it would be great to shine a light on this so that people became aware of it and that we could start the dialogue and build a solution set on how we can address this, maybe from a policy perspective, an employer perspective, or some other way to address how we are able to enhance the employment and underemployment of military spouses. So they're not, I won't say penalized, but they're not harmed by this frequent moves between jobs and employers. It's okay typically between employer and employer because a lot of plans roll over and there's no penalty for that. But many times spouses find themselves going from a W-2 status to a 1099 status. And then there's a lot of complexities in intricacies in navigating those. So that becomes a sweet spot for a financial planning firm like First Command. So that's why we're really excited about what we're seeing here.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. So a couple of top line findings from the survey. Having two incomes is critical. No surprise for those of you who work in this space. Yet for most military spouses surveyed, finding employment at their experience and/or education level remains elusive. Specifically, 61% of survey respondents agree or strongly agree their family depends on two incomes to meet their financial needs. With that in mind, 87% believe the military lifestyle impacts their ability to find jobs at their experience and/or education level. 2, access to employer-sponsored retirement plans positively impacts a military spouse's confidence in his or her ability to maintain a post-retirement standard of living. Now, this makes sense, of course. Nearly half of the respondents, however, indicate never or rarely being able to fully vest due to not being with an employer long enough to qualify for the employer's sponsored retirement plans. Okay. Many respondents cite the COVID-19 pandemic, childcare availability, and frequent moves as a basis for not staying long enough with their employers. So Dr. Deborah Bradford of Syracuse, a licensed clinical psychologist, accurate, and longtime behind-the-scenes researcher for military families. It's so great to see you up on the stage for a change instead of toiling away in the back, crunching numbers and doing research. The work done at Syracuse is well-known and well-respected. We know that. And you've been doing this for so long. How do these findings suggest what do these findings suggest we need to be doing to move the needle on military spouse unemployment and underemployment?
So first I want to echo something that Liz said earlier, that I do think that we are moving the needle. When I came into this space, none of this research wasn't happening, programs weren't happening. So we are moving the needle, but there's much more we need to do. I think the conversation that we haven't really had about underemployment and unemployment is that these impacts aren't temporary, they're cumulative. So it's not just that, one discrete period of time where someone's unemployed that they're impacted. It's each consecutive time that a spouse is unemployed, they're losing that income. They're not able to save for retirement because they don't have income or they're not vested in a plan. And that adds up over time. And so it's not just those active duty spouses that are impacted, it's also those veteran spouses. And, that's a population we really don't even know much about them, but anecdotally, we know those folks are struggling. So two pieces of this, it's those active duty spouses, and it's those veteran spouses, and these effects are cumulative. So we need to get those folks into jobs that they can stay in. So remote, flexible employment options are I think we have a wonderful opportunity because of COVID. There weren't many silver linings. This may be one of them. And I hope that this is something that we can use to advance, to fix some of these things that have been long-term problems. This has been, as we all know in this room, this has been a problem that it hasn't moved. It's 22, 23% unemployment for a long, long time.
Wonderful. And I love how you frame the silver lining, right? Because COVID was such a terrible experience and it has its lingering effects, but if it somehow can benefit the employment issue around military spouses, that would be remarkable. Another data point, many respondents lack confidence in their management of long-term investment and retirement savings plans. Specifically, 53% of the respondents report they are saving for retirement separate from their service member. And just 40% of those who have long-term investment and retirement savings accounts are not at all or not very confident in managing it. Atia Ingram, you're a financial planner, military spouse, and you got started in your career through the FINRA Military Spouse Fellowship, which is awesome. Tell me a little bit, having worked so closely with military families and being as I mentioned, active duty spouse. What resonates with you about the findings and why should we care?
Thank you guys for having me, Hiring Our Heroes. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you all today. I think what we need to take away from these findings is that too many of our spouses still are not thinking long-term about their finances. We all know that the days are gone where we can just live off military retirement, that'll take care of us once we transition. So we do a really good job. I think in most installations, I've had the pleasure of, working with the Army, the Marine Corps, as a personal financial counselor, accredited financial counselor on our bases. But I do see our community, the spouse community and the active duty community viewing those services just as crisis management. We're not using those free services, Military OneSource, for planning. To have the discussion, well, now I'm a 1099 employee. What does that mean for my taxes? How much can I save? What is a SEP IRA? A lot of spouses don't know you can still contribute to a Roth IRA when you're not working. Is because your active duty spouse is working. So all of these opportunities are there for us, but I just don't see us utilizing it. Our commands, and I think a lot of it is because the commands aren't comfortable. Of course, money is that topic, right, that a lot of people don't want to talk about. They're very scared to touch on it. But even at the command level, a lot of the briefs that are being given on our installations are targeted just to active duty. So it's during that 8 to 4 window where those of us who are working spouses aren't able to attend, a lot of that. And then again, it's just that crisis management, I can't pay my bills. Now, what do I do? We're not having a discussion on this is where I want to be, in 20 years post-military. How do I get there? How much do I have to save today? And I think if they had that education, like I was fortunate to have, I have my degree in accounting. So these were discussions I was able to have at the college level, which benefited me as I became a military spouse to just see, all I have to do is put in $50 a month when I'm, 19, 20 years old as a military spouse. And then, 25 years from now, we'll be okay. But we just got to get that education, to people. Like, you got to start early. And I'm just not seeing enough of that. And I think the data that you quoted just supports that.
You must love your work.
I do.
Rory, did you want to build on that?
Yeah, I think we have such a great opportunity, though, because you're thinking about a very young population with new service members, new spouses. If we can catch them early and they can get that education, we see less of these cumulative effects. And so I think it's always for us to say, okay, there's a challenge here, but there's also a really great opportunity if we frame these resource conversations in the right way.
And engage them in a way that where they live and thrive online and in these platforms that don't necessarily resonate with people older than I. Go ahead, as old as I. Mike, I know, or as old as Mike.
Yeah, I was born in the 1900s.
Actually, we all were. If you,
I just want to comment on something that she mentioned about command here, because it is important for command to understand the overall impact to the family, not just a service member. And one of the things that we found is that in the new blended retirement system, spouses are not required to participate in the decision-making or the elections by the service member. And so the spouses are sometimes excluded or not even considered when these important long-term decisions are made. So this is another opportunity for some of our policymakers to look at this type of correction, because in the survivor benefit plans, spouses are required to participate in those elections. But we're talking retirement plans forever and ever, and yet we don't encourage or allow the spouses to participate. Mm-hmm. To me, that is a pretty obvious failure in policy. So we should probably address that.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Deborah.
Just to add to that, I think a lot of spouses not only don't participate, but they don't know how to weigh the options to work versus not work. Because sometimes it seems like the obvious choice might be not to work because childcare is too expensive. I'm not making enough to, cover my expenses. And they may not be thinking about that lost income that comes from retirement or Social Security or what it means to have to re-enter the job market several years down the road, or those missed promotion opportunities. So, I think that's where someone like you can be really helpful.
No pressure. Thank you, Deborah, so much. Rory, some folks may not know that before you were Special Assistant to the President and Executive Director of Joining Forces, you were pursuing a career in social work, active duty spouse of a junior enlisted, ton of relevant experience there. What do you think is the most critical takeaway for joining forces and other stakeholders who work on military spouse employment and entrepreneurship?
Well, I think we've all kind of touched on things that are very important. And for me, when we started back at Joining Forces, we weren't willing to talk to the business community about what they should be doing if we weren't doing it as the federal government. And so for us, we want to be an employer of choice as the federal government. And so remote and flexible work opportunities, those are critical. And we have some amazing champions in the room who are doing that work. Hi, Sherry. And I think, for us to be able to model that and to say, okay, we know that because of the pandemic, we actually can make remote work for spouses, that's just critical to me. And so having a career that you can take from place to place is something I never had as a junior enlisted spouse. And so we started over again and again and again. And to the earlier point, I've never vested ever anywhere. We had, 5 PCSs in 7 years, like Liz O'Brien had as well. And we just need to make these opportunities available. And I will say, when I was the deputy director of Joining Forces in the Obama administration, I spent a lot of time with CEOs saying, you're doing great work for veterans, but here's what you could do for military spouses. And remote work was on that list every single time. And people looked me dead in the eye and said, we can't make it work. It won't work for our culture. And we know now that that is not true.
Thank you so much for doing that work. So much comes out of Joining Forces, past and present. Thank you so much. We're almost out of time, and I'm not going to be that facilitator that goes over. So how about a lightning round? If you could each briefly share an immediate action that any one of us can take, we'd love to hear it. Mike, I'll start with you.
Thanks, Rosemary. So I would encourage folks that are the military spouses in the audience to take advantage of what we offer at First Command. We have, like I said, 175 offices, and each one of those offices provides free financial education and training, resources and material for spouses. We will come talk to your spouse groups. We will come help educate you. We will try to eliminate that uneasiness or that fear of financial planning or retirement planning that you may have, and we will lift you up from the unknowing to at least a level set, so you're more comfortable and better able to navigate those waters.
That's wonderful. And also Military OneSource, that was brought up earlier, they have certified financial planners, and there's always one at the local bank on an installation. Military Family Advisory Network has the Financial Readiness Roundtable and a wonderful online teaching program, MilSense. There are a lot of credible resources out there, and if we can all spread it, that'd be great. How about you, Atayim?
Yes, my one actionable takeaway would be for each of you here, and just to encourage those who aren't here to just talk to someone. I think we all assume everyone knows as much as we know, and that's often not the case. So the one thing that you are comfortable with as it relates to retirement or money, just start up a conversation with somebody at the commissary, at the school, the places where you are. Mm-hmm. We need to be having those conversations and just normalize that these are regular discussions we should be having with each other so we can all progress and prepare ourselves for retirement.
Wonderful. Rory?
I think my immediate action when I look around this room is 10 years ago, I saw a lot of the same faces. We need to bring new people in. We need to have more advocates, and I want all of you to that each one can reach one thing actually works. Let's double the crowd. Let's bring people. Let's ask the uncomfortable questions, to Liz O'Brien's earlier point, and say, why aren't you doing this work? It's critical. We need more people to do this amazing work, and you are all doing what you need to do, but let's bring more people in.
Wonderful. I love that. Deborah?
Roy stole my talking point, but
Even tried to not do
but
that.
I'll say it a different way. And this, Brian, this is by Brian. We're the coalition of the willing here in the room, and this can be, double, triple the size that we're here. And you guys are the ones that are out passionate about this topic. You know what military spouses bring to the workplace. Tell your friends, tell your neighbors, promote military spouses in your annual reports, and tell people about the good work you're doing and what military spouses bring to your companies.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you all. And the summary of the survey is in your packet. And with that, thank you very much for your attention and time.
Please welcome to the stage the Vice President for Military and Veteran Affairs for Jpmorgan Chase, Meredith Lozar.
Am I live? Okay, great. Hey, everybody, it's so great to see you. How about the weather today? Way to go, HOH, for getting the best day in the last 3 weeks for this event. It's amazing to be out here at Decatur House this afternoon, and I am excited to have a short conversation about military spouse employment pathways, which I think is timelier than ever, especially following the fantastic research conversation we just had. So to do just that, I'd like to invite Brent Parmiter and Corinna Updike to join me. All right, welcome, you guys. Thank you. So let's take a moment and set the scene, because I think, as I just said, it's timelier than ever for us to talk about military spouse employment pathways. Why do I say that? Well, because so far today, you've heard staggering statistics like a 22% unyielding unemployment rate for military spouses. And I will tell you that recent research tells us that when we add veteran spouses and retiree spouses to that number, it jumps to 32% unemployment. And when we factor in COVID, and when we talk about things like the She Session, the number of women who left the workforce during the pandemic, the unemployment rate for military spouses jumps even higher to 38%. But here's why pathways are most important right now. That's because military spouses are ready to go back to work. Over half of them are applying for jobs right now as we speak, and 60% of them aren't hearing back from any of the applications that they're sending. How do we change that? How do we, as Jpmorgan Chase, Walmart, Deloitte, Prudential, Amazon, all of those who are here and dedicated to this mission, do something about that by creating pathways for military spouse employment? And what does it also do for the organization? So that's what we're going to dive into for the next few minutes, and we're really excited for that conversation. So let me introduce these two phenomenal panelists. Brent Parmiter is Walmart's Senior Director for Non-Traditional Talent and Head of Military and Veteran Affairs. He's also the Civilian Aide to the Secretary of the Army for Arkansas and co-founder of Call Sign Coffee, an e-commerce coffee roasting business that supports the military community. He's an Army combat veteran, and he and his wife, Lisa, who's a military spouse of over 20 years, are proud parents of 2 service members. So, wow, Brent, incredible. And Karina Updike is a principal in Deloitte's government and public sector practice. She focuses on human capital transformations for Department of Defense clients to improve the talent experience, not only for civilians, but also for military employees. So some really exciting work happening on her side of Deloitte as well. So we've talked about the scene. What is the landscape currently? So we threw out some statistics. We know where we stand. So Brent, I want to talk to you about how changes in your business and also in the labor market that we kind of just touched on led Walmart to create pathways for military spouse hiring.
Yeah, so we looked about 8 or 9 months ago as we were evolving our strategies and we were taking a labor market framework to things. And we realized that our previous work over the past 8 or 10 years for veteran and military spouse hiring was really supply side driven. It was how can we support the population, and then hopefully there's some demand side benefits to it. And we said, let's just reframe it a little bit. So we said, how can we look at the broader demand side of the business from a workforce lens? And I was talking to Rory last night, and we are ready to nerd out on workforce conversations. So if we looked at it from a workforce development side of things, we said, what's the demand and in that labor market for us? And we saw that we were only getting about 70% of our talent needs met through traditional populations. And so there was a business case right there that was easy to go back into the talent community and the workforce community and the business segments and say, there's populations out there, not just veterans and military spouses, but other non-traditional populations like caregivers that are ready to get back into the workforce, or people with disabilities, or whatever it is. And when we started framing out the supply side to include military spouses in particular as part of broader populations, it became easier for the business to get their head cognitively around and to create programs for. And so we just decided that was the way to go. Since we started doing that, just in the last 12 months, we brought in 28,969 military spouses into the company.
Wow.
Yeah. It's a 23% increase than the same 12 months prior. And we know that it's because we're trying to be more qualitative on where they land. We're trying to be both upstream and downstream of the point of hire on the engagement, which I know we'll talk about in a bit. And we're trying to do so in a way that really meets business demand first, because then people are seen as a solution to a problem, and it's so much easier to get everyone across the finish line.
Yeah, I mean, that's a tremendous number, Brent. And I know as an active duty Marine Corps spouse of 11 duty stations at this point, I never thought I would hear an employer say we hired 29,000 military spouses in all my years. So that's just tremendous. Now, Corinne, I want to come to you because Deloitte has a phenomenal military spouse program. And to be honest, it's kind of one of the OGs. It's been around since 2016. So talk a little bit about that program and how it helps military spouses build careers in Deloitte.
Yes, certainly. So our military spouse initiatives was started in 2016, and it was actually started as a grassroots effort with some of our military spouses that were employed. And they recognized a couple different things. One, the business need for us to employ military spouses who had a unique understanding of our clients and the clients that we service. And then we're also in geographic locations that were very, were very important to us in our business growth, like the Norfolk area, like San Diego and Huntsville and all over the U.S. So it was grassroots, started by military spouses, and it has built, it's really become, a home for our military spouses, and it really does three things. So one is provides a network and provides not only an opportunity to the pipeline to get military spouses into the firm, but to give them a route for success and to give them a path for success. So there's a formal mentorship program, there's formal sponsorship programs, networking, and career development opportunities for the military spouses. The second one is a lot of our recruiting is done by referrals and employee referrals. And this group of military spouses is one of my go-tos for when I'm trying to find and recruit talent in unique areas. And I use, one of my main client locations is Memphis, Tennessee, and I use the Military Spouse Network there constantly to always be hiring new talent into that area. And then the third area is really just around the growth and development, which I mentioned a little bit before, but how do we make sure they're successful? How do we support their moves, whether they be international or domestic, and make sure that they've got the right resources around them?
Yeah, and I think that piece is so critical because we talk about remote work, but what's beyond that is that we need portable work, right? It doesn't always have to be remote. What we're looking for is that portability. And we talked about that earlier today with a military spouse able to keep their job in Singapore. We also look at that at Jpmorgan Chase. How can we bring military spouses in through our Military Spouse Pathways program and place them intentionally into roles that are portable so that when they move, they can stay with the firm? So I think we are starting to really crack this nut. And what's exciting is now we can expand upon all of that. But I think one of the key things that we're hitting on too is also the importance of retention of the military spouse once they come into the organization. And beyond that, we know that that piece is also really important to the service member. So Karina, I want to come to you because you all know data is one of my love languages. I came from research and innovation background, and you recently did a human capital or human centered design study for the United States Navy on the experience that a sailor has in the Navy. And one of the pieces that I was really excited to hear about was how you focused on military spouse employment as it relates to the experience. So talk quickly about that.
Yeah, so one piece of data for you is in surveys, and 40% of service members report that they have considered leaving the service because of spouse employment issues and challenges. And right now, more than ever, we all know our services, need to retain their talent. And so, my clients in the Navy space recognized that part of that retention equation is the spouse experience. And so a few years back, we had the privilege of doing a human-centered design sprint, if anyone's familiar with that, which is a very different way of doing research on the spouse experience for the Navy. And it was just such a rewarding project to be able to interview and work with Navy spouses to understand what their experience was and what they need to make this successful for their families and for their spouses. And so it's a 12-week sprint. The report actually went all the way up to Ms. Pence and the Vice President's office, and there was some amazing ideas that actually got implemented out of this sprint. Very small thing, very small and quick wins to large things like the ideas of like co-working spaces for Navy spouses or military spouses on locations.
Yeah, that's exciting. And we know that military spouses are incredibly loyal. So when provided with opportunities to work for an organization and then retain that employment, they will do it. It's just a matter of getting that foot in the door and then having that opportunity to become someone who's in a portable role that they can then move with them. And so, Bryn, I want to come to you on this because one of the things that we know is that 80% of military spouses will upskill and reskill, whether that's within their industry so that they can be promoted, take on more work, get into a leadership position, or whether it's to move into something that's a more durable, growing pathway for them as they look at their career. And I know Walmart has a lot of post-hire opportunities for military spouses after they join the company. Can you talk a little bit about those and how they help with your retention?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll paint a quick persona of two kind of camps of military spouses that we see. We have the ones that would be sitting in this room, for example, people with professional degrees, people that probably have 10 or plus more years as military spouses. Those individuals in our company currently are like our senior vice president for merchandising operations. They're the vice president for learning and leader development, running all of our academies all across the country. They're military, Army and Air Force military spouses, for example. We have people that are a little bit more junior, and that's where with 90% of the US population living within 30 minutes of a Walmart, you can see there's lots of opportunities for us to bring more junior individuals who are aspiring to become that other military spouse in the future. And that's where we do a lot of focus on our free college program, on other programs where people can upskill. We've set up a DOL registered apprenticeship program for people in tech roles. We set up a home office pathway experience for people that are in field roles who have upskilled to transition to home office jobs. And through things like our Military Family Promise, which our COO of Walmart US operations was a military spouse and is now the COO of the company. His wife was stationed at Fort Hood and some other places along the way, and they were able to stay with the company because Walmart guarantees a job at a new location whenever the military service member PCSs.
Yeah, that military family promise is really astounding. And what you're doing right now is you're sharing the story. You're talking about the successes that Walmart has had. And one of the things that we do at Jpmorgan is we share those stories with other lanes of business so that we can scale the pathways that we're building. How do we hire more spouses? How do we get more lanes of business in the firm to do that? And I know Corinna Deloitte does a lot of the same. So talk about how, for you, retaining military spouses is paramount and it helps you share that story.
So I think events like this and anecdotes are really, really important, and stories can be shared on a broad spectrum. We do, a ton of communication throughout our defense and security and justice sector around our military spouses. We spotlight them. We make sure that they're understood, their stories and what they bring and the talent they bring to the firm is spotlighted. I think also it's the one-on-one conversations, and it's the word of mouth, and it's the recognizing that we're making that it's not just Deloitte, but it's companies like Walmart and Jpmorgan and all the other great companies here are making these commitments. That's how you start to get the stories out. And it's I think for me, when I did the ethnographic interviews of the Navy spouses, it was like hearing their stories and being able to take that and bring it up the chain of command in an organization of, here's 9 personas, here's 9 stories. Let's make this real to you of what this means to a sailor and to their family. That helped tremendously in building the empathy to make change happen.
Absolutely. And I think Hiring Our Heroes provides another pathway, as do other organizations like the Department of Defense, SECO program, because it lets us share the story with all of you, right? What we know about military spouses is if they see someone do a job successfully, they can more likely put themselves in those shoes, and they'll then be more likely to apply for it. So it's partnering also, I think, to share those success stories so we can scale those pathways. So Brent, I know we're running low on time, but I really want to take this question to you too, because as Walmart scales, I know you all are sharing your successes as well. Talk a little bit about that.
So we are trying to amplify through the individual experiences, just because we know people will see data and they engage with it, but if they can see somebody that they can emulate, that'll make it even more compelling for them to want to take that journey. I wanted to take one of the successes we really want to lean into is the supplier community. We spend about over $1 billion a year on veteran-owned small businesses. We would love to see military spouses be through legislation and other forms, be a protected class that could be recognized in our supplier diversity efforts in the future. Those veteran-owned businesses that we spend $1 billion on every year employ 900,000 people. So if we could now add military spouses to that, incentivize them, and then through our pathways that we're doing for veterans, do the same to encourage military spouses to take advantage of the Hiring Our Heroes and the IVMF entrepreneurship opportunities, that's a success I'd like to see in the future.
Yeah, and I think that's a great opportunity for us to foot stomp that the time is now. Great things are happening now. The future has never been brighter. And I want to say to the military spouses in the room and also those who are with us live stream, now is your time. It's our time. So if you've been hitting the brakes because of COVID, we all get that. Take advantage of the Hiring Our Heroes programs. Take advantage of Department of Defense and SECO programs. Get your resume ready, dust off your high heels, and let's get back to work, because these pathways are only getting bigger and they're targeted, especially for people just like us. So now is your moment. With 20 seconds left, we are on time. So thanks, everyone.
Please welcome the Senior Vice President for Military and Veteran Affairs at Comcast NBC Universal, Carol Eggert.
That voice of God gets me every time. That's a hyperstartle reflex in perfect view there. Never easy. Haven't gotten over it after 10 years since being in Iraq. So if I grab you, that's why, and I apologize in advance. I just love the panels. What an incredible job. I want to quickly give another perspective, and that's a perspective of the civilian-military divide and convincing our employers to understand the needs of military spouses. They don't even know what they are. When I started this, when I promised Eric we would jump in on this effort, I would say, military spouses, let's hire them. And they thought we were talking about veterans and their spouses. They didn't understand we're not in a big military town at the headquarters. They didn't understand that we're talking about active duty military spouses that move all the time. They didn't understand resumes that had consistent gaps in the resume. So there was so much education on the private sector, and I'm sure Brent would tell you the same thing. And so I think we definitely need to work on employer education. We've hired over 1,000 spouses, but that's only the ones we know because spouses do not self-identify. So we need our spouses to speak up, and not all the ones here, you're already convinced. You need to tell your friends that, hey, if you're a spouse, tell everybody. Profile what you do and what you've done. And that would help us hire more military spouses, us as an employer. And I just want to thank all of our partners, USAA, Walmart. There is no competition when it comes to supporting our military community. I mean, Verizon, AT&T, and my COO might hear me say this, but there is no competition. We will work together to support the military community. So we were founded, a small business founded by Ralph Roberts. He founded Comcast and NBC Universal, and we continue to value entrepreneurship in our company. We value those characteristics of innovation, curiosity, outside of the box thinking, collaboration in the company so that we can better serve our customers. But we also champion outside businesses through partnerships. Our supplier diversity tracks military spouse businesses. Although there is not a government program, we do ask the questions so that we can track that and better reach out to our military spouse businesses. We also have a new initiative called RISE, and I want you to share this. So RISE is a media and technology grant program for people of color and women-owned small businesses. And it provides media and technology consulting services, as well as grants. So just go to Comcast RISE and tell people about it. There's so many resources out there that we just can't get out. So help us all get this kind of stuff out. The other one is write down ACP, Affordable Connectivity Program. This is the best deal ever our government came up with. It's a voucher program so people of low income can get digital connectivity. And every one of our providers has a special program, AT&T, Comcast, Verizon, but it is underused. And I'm sure we've got some people who qualify for that in your circle, so please spread that word. But our founder was also a veteran. He served as a naval officer in World War II, and since then our connections to the military community have grown. They actually started a team, and I lead it, of 11 people committed to nothing more than serving the military community and meeting the needs of the military community. And my biggest finding was nobody understands the military community. So Brent just talked me into being a CASA, and he promised to be my mentor. So I've recently been appointed as a civilian aide to the Secretary of the Army. And my big cause is going to be, let's inform our community on what our military does and why our private sector and our communities need to understand them to better support. So thank you for your volunteering to help me out with that. Investiture at the Pentagon is next week. I believe in this stuff. So I am just really honored and humbled today to talk about two women who embody military spouse energy, grit, and resiliency. The Military Spouse Small Business Award recognizes military spouse entrepreneurs and highlights a small business ownership as a successful path to employment. This year's honorees is Instant Teams, Erica McManus and Liza Raduwald. And they are the co-founders of Instant Teams. Let's just give them a round of applause before they get up here. And they have grown to be national thought leaders on military spouse employment as well as entrepreneurship. They have created opportunities for remote and portable roles for military spouses while developing their very own successful business as a military spouse. And they have such an inspiring story. So let's take a moment and watch their video.
Instant Teams is a talent marketplace that connects large corporations directly to military spouses and untapped talent communities.
So Liza and I started the company in 2016 after meeting each other in a virtual fitness online group.
When she came to me with the idea behind starting Instant Teams, I was immediately on board because I had had some similar thoughts. And I knew that with her background and my background together, we could really create something that solved this big problem that we were both seeing within the military spouse community, but also solving the talent shortages that a lot of corporations are now facing.
Growing an organization from 200 to 600 remote team members and never living in the same place, it's been a challenge. That ability to communicate and grow an organization remotely came naturally, but was definitely something that we needed to learn to work through together, not only for ourselves, but then as we put those practices into place for all of our teams that are literally across the globe.
Since the inception of Instant Teams, we have put over $17 million directly into the pockets of military families. That's one thing that I'm extremely proud of as an entrepreneur because I always live by the mantra of see a need, fill a need. And I definitely saw the need on the military spouse side for financial well-being for the military families that really wanted dual income, career progression, and to be involved in their careers.
And what gets me out of bed every single morning is the stories of military spouses being hired and the stories and the feelings of personal identity, belonging to a community, that career progression. Those are the impact. Like that is the story of impact. We're helping individuals feel fulfilled, have personal identity.
We're very excited and honored to be recognized for this HOH award. Being part of the community and working so hard and having the partners, it feels good to be recognized and to see that recognized in a public way and in partnership with HOH.
So you should know that Erica and her co-founder Liza have hired over 500 military spouses. Instant Teams is opening the doors of opportunity for other military spouse businesses. They have successfully landed a rare seat at the military spouse-led businesses in obtaining venture capital. So please welcome Instant Teams Military Spouse Small Business Impact Award winners.
Please welcome back Eric Eversole and the spouse of the Chief of Staff of the Air Force, Mrs. Shireen Brown.
Good afternoon again. Very excited to have this fireside chat with Shireen. And let me just say something that I think is really important. I mean, the conversations thus far have been absolutely fascinating and impactful. So to all of our panelists and all of our moderators, thank you. I'm really incredibly fortunate to be sitting with Shireen, the spouse of the Chief of Staff of the Air Force, to talk about something that at the end of the day is very important to hiring our heroes in the business community, and that's taking care of our people. And we know that taking care of our people is also a critical priority for the military. And Shireen, from the Air Force perspective, I know you've made this a real priority with your 5 to Thrive program. Can you talk a little bit about that program and the people that you're trying to really take care of?
Well, sure. Thank you, Mike. I just want to say, first of all, thank you so much for having me on today with this little fireside chat. It's exciting to be here and to see so many of our folks that's in the crowd today. I've learned a lot with a lot of the discussion that's been here already, some of which I really want to take back to the Air Force because it's incredible what you all are doing. So let me just share a little bit about the 5 and 5. So with our Thrive team, with some military spouses, we created the 5 and Thrive. And it is meant to address some of the quality of life challenges for our families. While focusing on 5 focus areas, which are childcare, education, housing, healthcare, and spouse employment. These are the areas that we feel are most critical and keep rising to the top. They are the daily challenges that our families keep facing. The other thing is that one of the ways that we address some of these issues is by highlighting our preventative measures, by sharing some of the best practices, and also by fostering some of the community partnerships. This is a huge deal for us. And what you'll see is that for a lot of our installations, the degree and priority of some of these challenges vary by installation, but they keep coming to the top. For our DoD, and they are finding different ways to try to address some of these issues. But what we also find is our MSOs and VSOs are also trying to do the same. Our spouses are incredibly passionate. They're proficient, and what I say are purposeful. They want to have a career. They want to be able to do different things in their lives. They don't just want a job. They want a career, for that matter. So our 5 and Thrive challenges, they can overlap, but ultimately they may be preventing some of the things that might be happening. For example, childcare, not having the opportunity to have that available to them prevents them from using spouse or being a part of the spouse employment field. So when all these issues we feel are connected, and so when we're not paying attention to them, they tend to overrate some of the things that we'd like to do. So my initiative focuses on all 5 of those because we don't want to leave any one of those out.
It's such a great initiative. If you haven't seen it, I would encourage you to visit the Air Force website, but it's such a great program. Can we, if you don't mind, can we talk a little bit about your personal journey and your story as a military spouse? And as I'm sure, like every other military spouse, you've seen more than one move. Can you talk a little bit about your personal story?
Sure. So way back when I first met my spouse here in the DC area, I was on a track. I was headed to graduate school, but in order to do that, I needed to acquire a 3rd language, believe it or not. So in order for me to do that, I was trying to get to Japan, and I did. And I was trying to be immersive and learn that 3rd language so I could go to school. Along the way, I met my other half, and as we all know, just as with spouse employment, my life morphed. It changed just a little bit. I never really quite finished that program that I was looking for. However, when I got back to the US, I was in Japan at the time. And when I got back to the US, it was trying to find a job. And we moved to a number of different areas. And, it's a little bit different for spouses who have had a career, moving to a different place, and they're focused on where they want to go. Now you're together with your spouse, and this is not necessarily a choice that you're making. It's where the service sends you. And as one of the spouses was mentioning, they were located in Cannon, New Mexico. And if you've ever been there, familiar with it, it's quite a small place. Let's just say that. So as a result of that, over the years, I am also an exceptional military family member, which means I have a child or someone in my family that needs my assistance. It's a special needs sort of situation. And that happens to be my son who has autism. So even though the plan was to start a family, realizing that this diagnosis came into play, it pretty much took me out of the spouse employment kind of circle or arena. So I focused most of my life on making sure that I had a functional member of their family, which is my son. And now he lives on his own, has a job, and we're quite happy about that. But as you know, children never really leave you. So we still have engagements with that son. But as a result, following my spouse around, it's an opportunity for me to become involved with a number of different programs. This program itself, Hiring Our Heroes, I was just sharing with Mike, along with a couple of other folks, started off as in-gear career, and that touched my life when we were in different locations. I had the opportunity to engage then and meet some of the original founders with the program and realize that it's now where it's at. A couple of assignments ago, we were over in Hawaii, and they were starting up their program there with the Military Spouse Fellowships, which I thought was absolutely fantastic. However, when COVID hit, that sort of shut things down. So as a result of, while I may not be the paid employee in our house, along with my other half, I do recognize that spouses want to work. It is an issue that comes across in my conversations, across my desk, if you will, numerous times. So the things that you're doing to promote our spouses, our military spouses, in ways that they too can become employed and have a serious career with what they're doing is important to all of us, even for those of us who are unpaid in our work. So thank you.
That's really great. I don't know about anybody else in this room. I did have to look up where Cannon Air Force Base was on my phone. It is in eastern New Mexico, about an hour and a half from Albuquerque. So it's a beautiful part of the country, but it's remote.
Yes, very much.
I think one of the things that I've heard over and over again through a lot of the storytelling today and through your story is the power of one person to really make a difference, right? On these bases in our communities, employers, that one person in the office who says we need to hire military spouses. From your perspective, this concept of a power of one making huge differences on our bases in our communities, what do you think about that?
Well, it's interesting as we've gone from place to place and seen what military spouses can do. I've been constantly amazed. I shouldn't even say amazed, because to see military spouses at their not even peak at what they can do with their skill sets is amazing. We've had conferences in the various positions that my spouse has been in leadership, where it's all spouse run. And the opportunity for all these spouses to use their skill sets in order to have in attendance over 100, 200 other spouses, whether it's for their opportunity to become educated about different things, or even just having an opportunity to learn about what the leadership is on the base, just floors me what they can do. And the power of one is just amazing. It's part of what our Five and Thrive initiative does, the connecting with, or at least fostering with community partnerships. We firmly believe that when groups, individuals can start a program, they have the passion, first of all, because they're invested in what's going on. You can help shape how these things look. And when you are able to find others who feel the same way, there's growth, or there's power in numbers. So individuals grow as a result of that. It's amazing to see what folks can do. And even from a military perspective, sitting here with my spouse as we talk about what the military can do for our members, we're often pushing for our members and our spouses to use the grassroots efforts. And you've heard this today. Because from the top, we can drive policy and we can do those sorts of things. But when individuals get involved and show us from a leadership level that these things can actually be done, they pay a lot of attention to what has been going on at the junior level. If it's manageable, if it's possible, we can recreate and share those best practices across the board, not just here in the States, but even in our OCONUS regions, or across the board globally is what we're looking to do. So thank you for asking that question.
So we have people watching the live stream. We have a great audience here. What would you tell the military spouses that are hearing this message today, that feel like they're struggling? What would you tell them as to what's the first step, and what do they need to keep focused on in order to be successful?
Well, first I would say never give up. As you've heard on the panel today, a lot of spouses have either sought the education or tried to connect with somebody. And that's what we normally would tell folks. just don't give up, because you have had, just in your lifestyle alone, the military lifestyle affords families to become quite adaptable, flexible, always morphing their careers, or just being in different locations. This makes it ripe for you to be able to do the same thing in your career itself. Network with those folks that you need to find in order that are similar to what you do, or even not, because you never know who you're going to meet that might be able to advance your career in a way that was unexpected. The other thing I would say is these programs that we have available, both in the military, the MySeco, the military one-source programs that we have, along with what we have here today with Hiring Our Heroes. Oh my gosh, the Military Spouse Fellowship Program is a way for all, as you've heard, many of you have heard today, what they are able to do. When I first heard about this program, we were in a location and down in Florida, hearing from a spouse who lived in Italy at the time and couldn't work. She worked at the White House, was stunned that living in Italy, that was not the opportunity for her. Came back and decided that this is what she wanted to do, is start this program to be able to assist. She has her own business right now and is spreading the word. I can't begin to tell you how many spouses I've come across that do exceptionally well. Spouses who, while we were in the Pacific region, spouse who had a job. And thank you, first of all, let me just say thank you to those of you who are here from a organization, business, company. Thank you for being here and supporting our military spouses. You have no idea what this means. When I found out there was a military spouse while we were in the PACAF region, this gentleman was married to his spouse and they were located in Vietnam. Vietnam has no SOFA agreement. He really wanted to work. His first inclination was to go to his boss and tell him that he was a military spouse. When I came into the military with my other half, just the thought of being able to go to somebody and saying, hey, I'm a military spouse, was an immediate denial. Like, why are you even here? We don't support that. So just to know that you're here to support our military spouses means a tremendous amount. This particular spouse, as a result, could not necessarily follow in that particular line of business that he worked in while he was in Washington. However, was able to bring a laptop with him to Vietnam and work as though he was working here in Washington. So telework, remote work before COVID even happened. So if we can follow along those lines, you all are making a difference in ways that you have no idea. And so if you can continue that, and as we were talking about earlier today, all the different advancements and ability to be engaged, I would highly suggest, and as one of the spouses said, hey, this crowd has always been here. If you could bring one more in, please do so. You have no idea how much this means to all of our spouses going forward. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Shireen. So just as a follow-up, I heard the call to action. Next year, we will double the size. So sorry, Brian, but we will make that commitment now. I want to thank you for joining us today and your commitment to our airmen and our service members around the globe. It's really making a difference, and to be able to hear firsthand your story gives people the power that they know they can accomplish great things. So thank you for being here, and thanks for what you're doing.
All right, thank you so much.
Please welcome to the stage the partnerships lead at Grow with Google, Adana Uka.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Adana Uka, and I lead partnerships at Grow with Google, which is Google's economic mobility initiative to train millions of Americans in the digital skills that we need today and tomorrow. Military spouse support is critical to what we do. I know when my team heard that the average military spouse is more than 4 times more likely to be unemployed than the average American, we knew we had to do work around this important effort, and we're so happy and proud to be here today. At Grow with Google, we are connecting military families with the training, tools, and resources they need to build their careers and get in-demand jobs, not only through our partnership with the Department of Defense's Skill Bridge program, but also through Career Forward, which is our initiative that's based on fellowships that allow graduates of our Google Career Certificate programs to develop and showcase the new skills they've learned and ultimately be hired and converted at top employers, including Google and many of the great employer partners here in this room today. So many speakers have shared that supporting military spouses requires a lot of thought. And at Google, we're really proud and happy to provide holistic supports, whether that be teaching folks how to market their small businesses, helping them finish Google Career Certificates, providing online support resources like mentoring and coaching, and providing a job platform with remote opportunities. So the focus for this next panel that I'm really excited about is about the impact of fellowships and their unique ability to connect military spouses directly to employment opportunities. We know this conversation is really critical to getting upskilling and reskilling right. And we're more than thrilled to be part of the opportunity to listen to this conversation. I now have the honor of introducing Crystal Cochran, the Senior Director of Programs and Events at Hiring Our Heroes. Crystal was previously the Director of Fellows Programs and continues to oversee all military spouse fellowships as part of her work. So let's welcome her and the panel to the stage.
Thank you so much, Adana, and thank you for the continued partnership from Grow with Google. Hi to everyone, and thanks for joining us today. Thanks to my panel for joining me up here on stage, for being brave. Last December, within the framework of the National Defense Authorization Act, Congress established a 3-year pilot program to support military spouse employment through, wait for it, spouse fellowships. For those of you who've been joining us over the course of the last several years, you know that Hiring Our Heroes has been providing a steady drumbeat about the potential for spouse fellowships to finally change the landscape for military spouses. That's why we were so thrilled through bubbling efforts up to Congress to see their attention to this matter and to see that support come into place. We owe a debt of gratitude to many for the advocacy to make that happen. Many thanks to Meredith Smith on our team, who really worked tirelessly on this, and to our nonprofit partners, most especially National Military Family Association, for the advocacy that led to this. As plans for this pilot are evolving, we see this potential begin to take shape. And I'm so glad to be joined by our friend Eddie Menser with Department of Defense Military Community Support Programs. He has his own following, right? So I'll ask Eddie to kick off the conversation between us. And I'm going to start with this question. Why do you think spouse fellowships were important enough for Congress to merit that kind of attention with a $5 million funding commitment?
Absolutely. Crystal, thanks so much, and thanks for everybody for being here today. Before I answer, good grief. Before I answer the question, though, I'm going to point out a couple things. First off, to Liz's point earlier, we have done a lot on this issue over the last decade. When we look back to where this really started to bubble up, it's amazing what has been accomplished across the board. And that really goes to organizations like HOH and to the employer partners that are here today. And you really have to give yourselves and your partners a real round of applause for what you've accomplished. And we know that we have to look to the future. When we look at the groups and the organizations that are here today, I can't say enough how much the award for Liza and for Erica in Instant Teams is so well-deserved in what you two have achieved. And we've been very pleased, and I think this is part of this idea of fellowships, and is part of increasing training and pathways to employment. Over the last, 4 months, I think, we have been working with Instant Teams, the department has, and we have 175 military spouses that are participating in an Instant Teams training academy that will lead to employment at the end of that. And that's new for us. That's new space for the department to be not necessarily in the placement and the job placement work, but to be able to work with somebody that is really truly going to lead towards end of line employment for the military spouse community. That's why this is so important that Congress did look at fellowships as an opportunity for the department. And as you pointed out, Crystal, gave us the funding to make this happen. So we're really excited about where we are right now. We're going to be rolling that fellowship opportunity out at the end of this calendar year. It is a 3-year pilot. The great part of that is that halfway through, we owe a report to Congress. And in that report, what I hope it will say, and I'm sure that it will, 3-year pilots are great, but we need this to be extended into the future. And that really is the goal. So we're very excited. I'm excited personally as a military spouse to be part of this. Many of you know that my wife is a currently serving Air Force member. We currently work in Montgomery, Alabama. And I say we work because that's where she is as a wing commander at Maxwell Air Force Base. And I'm working there for the Department of Defense. And quite honestly, 2.5 years ago, the Department of Defense said, there's no way in hell that you will work from Montgomery, Alabama. And 2.5 years later, we've been doing it. We're PCSing in a month and a half to what I friendly call Lower Alabama, also known as the Florida Panhandle. And I will continue to be able to work for the Department of Defense from Hurlburt Field. So when the department is making these kind of commitments for our military spouses, there's a lot of opportunity for where we're going to go.
Absolutely. Is it on? There it is. My name is Monica, and I am a military spouse of an active duty Air Force member. We've been married for 15 years, and when we got married, I was teaching. I had a degree in psychology with my own classroom teaching 4th grade, and I thought I was going to teach science to kids everywhere. And as you know, life happens. You get married in PCS, and so there's been a lot of challenges going along with that. My goal, like I said, was to teach, but the challenges with being overseas. My husband and I spent about 10 plus years in Aviano Air Base, Italy, and 6 years in RAF Mildenhall in the United Kingdom. And while I would never, ever replace the experience that we had there, it did come at a cost. And so I was very fortunate to come across Hiring Our Heroes. My spouse was also a graduate of Hiring Our Heroes program. For the military fellowship side of things. And, you know, we were looking at it. He was like, hey, check this out. There's a spouse opportunity here. And I was very surprised. I actually had a job lined up to come here. And my application went out, and I got a hit, and contacted my program coordinator, Meredith, who's in the audience somewhere, and said, hey, you know how I said I wasn't interested? I think I'm interested now. And it has been a life-changing experience. And I know my experience, it's one experience, but I think a lot of other spouses can totally understand where I'm coming from and empathize when we're having to, move and, put our careers on hold. It's definitely exciting. I think there were some points earlier that you made about thinking long-term about our financial planning. To be honest, I was just hoping that I would be able to, make it through the next day on the first deployment 3 months into our marriage, So those kinds of things that come up, the fellowships, I imagine, are just going to be exactly what the spouse population needs.
Absolutely. I wished these things existed when my husband was still active duty. So from an employer standpoint, I have to say, I know Mike touched on it earlier, with our current 30 fellows that we have, but since 2019, we've hosted 45 military spouse fellows. And what the fellows bring is just that world class. It puts them in front of world-class experiences so they can build upon that. And it exposes them to that corporate environment, that private sector business. And the biggest part from a talent perspective is it puts them and showcases them, your skill set, your amazing talent right in front of that hiring manager and that organization. So we are a team Hiring Our Heroes Fellowship.
Okay, so I'm not going to throw down a challenge about the 45 fellows, but I'm throwing down a challenge about the 45 fellows. I encourage and ask each of you to be looking at that as your next goal. So this is a great conversation, a great kickoff. And as we look to the kind of the next steps in the conversation, one thing I really want to build in is a question of diversity and the value of the diversity that the fellowships bring. So Chrissy, I'll send it back to you on this. How do the fellows help to build a diversified workforce at USA? And as we talk about diversified, I'm looking for diversification of gender, of people of color, diversity of thought.
Well, it's just military spouses in general. And from a talent perspective, currently at USA, we consider our veteran population and our military spouse part of our representation of our metrics, and as it should be. And because military spouses, they come with such a diversified thought process, and it's not just the D&I checkbox that most companies are looking to do. It is that actual diversified thought that they're bringing to the table. And being, I think I heard the number, don't quote me on this number, guys, but I'm going to throw it out there anyway, 96% female. So
at least 92%
okay.
female. Yep.
So see, don't quote me, but it's high, right? So, I mean, that's and it's not just the female representation, it's also that diversity thought that I talked about.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm just thinking about 15 years ago in the Air Force to the spouses that I worked with to today. It's changed so much with the, different families don't look, I don't like to say this, but traditional, there's so many different types of families nowadays, and they're able to contribute to the workforce. I mean, it's been echoed here before, spouses want to work. Like if I had this program 15 years ago, I will tell you right now, I know I would have been a completely different person, because it's so empowering to be up here as a spouse and hear wonderful things. I am one of those spouses who I never mentioned my military affiliation, because I was afraid that was going to end my opportunity with an employer, or cut me out of an opportunity with an employer for whatever, oh, we have something here, can you make it? Oh, sorry, you can't go because you got to stay home, your husband's gone, or whatever. Those types of things we run into often. And so being with AWS and Amazon, I am so fortunate. What's fantastic about this group here, and I can speak for myself with my employers, when I told them I was a military spouse, they were like, oh my God, that's so fantastic. How long? What branch? Have you talked to so-and-so? You got to meet so-and-so. Go over here and tell them we sent you. And I was just like, oh my God, what is happening here? I don't understand how it was such a wonderful experience that I wish other spouses could have. And so for employers, one thing as a spouse is, we say like, don't hide it, but what incentives are you giving spouses not to hide it? Because that is a big thing. One of the things my manager completely understands. I told her today, hey, I'm going to go, represent HOH. Oh, fantastic. That's wonderful. I'm sorry I can't make it. My husband just got home from a deployment. She understands what I'm saying if I say my husband's TDY, or, I can't do this because, the ops tempo is too high or whatever. She gets the language, what I'm going through. And that is empowering. And I can tell you that goes a long way for spouses.
When we talk about diversity in the employment sector, sometimes we do get caught up in checking that box. And there's only one other group that's as diverse as the military spouse community. That's our service member community. They mirror each other. And for so long, we have recognized the diversity in our service members. That same diversity is there with our military spouses as well. And I would challenge that for the military spouses, and I know we've got some champion spouses here, there's some that are watching there, but when I get the opportunity to talk to military spouses, and it always comes up, should I identify as a military spouse? Yes, you should. Yes, you should. And if you're worried about identifying to a particular employer as a military spouse, is that an employer that you really want to work for?
Exactly.
And when you say that, it opens up their eyes a little bit more. We have more than 540 employer partners that have committed to recruiting, to hiring, to retaining military spouses through MSEP. Hiring Our Heroes has their partners. Everybody has partners. That's a lot of potential employers. So look at those employers, interact with those employers, and the biggest thing I talk about, and it gets back to this idea of diversity, this is diversity of employment. Don't think of Walmart and the amazing things that Brent and his team are doing for spouses. Walmart is just not the people you interact with every day. And every one of our employer partners is the same way. If I go to I stayed in the Hilton last night. I interacted with the front desk lady. That was it. There's so much more behind that wall when I check into the Hilton. And as spouses, we have to think about all of those opportunities that are not typically what we think of with our blinders of the different organizations that are out there.
I can understand now why you have such a following. Because you said some amazing things right there. So,
Thank you.
Thank you, Eddie. Like I can't follow that.
I know a little bit.
I'm going to try and follow that with the fact from my HR hat, you have to self-identify. And to your point, it has to be a culture fit for you as well as the company. And if they're not acknowledging you as a spouse or a military veteran, it's not a company that values your values and has a mission statement that you want to follow. So good points, Eddie.
Love it.
No, that's true. Because somebody hit on it earlier, underemployment and unemployment. I have 2 master's degrees, and I worked for a long time in underemployment situations. And it was because that's what I could get, and there were times where I really did have to think, is this where I want to be? And sometimes we don't have that luxury to say I have to have a job. Somebody said it earlier too, like we have to live on 2 incomes. It's today's day and age, it's impossible to live off of one and then to live off of one service member income. It's very difficult. And then, where we're located, a lot of times that's difficult as well. We were in the UK with the pound inflation rate, the exchange rate. There was no way that we could maintain without working. So it's great that everybody out here is willing to think about those things. And when I'm thinking myself overseas, it's fantastic that we've got opportunities here in the States, but there's a large population of spouses overseas. A large population. And I will give you an example from my point of perspective. I did start looking prior to coming back from England. And one of the things that I came across was I couldn't enter my phone number into my employment, into the application option, because a foreign phone number was not accepted into the search engine. And that can be frustrating when you've got an employer who's saying, we want to hire spouses, we value spouses, we value the military community, but I can't enter my current phone number, and there's no way to continue on without it. Or there's no APO, AE, I have to put New York. And for me, I know that because I've been affiliated with the military for 15 years, but if you're a new spouse who's not familiar, what are they going to do? And again, they're going to sit with either unemployment or underemployment. And that can be a bit frustrating as a spouse when we're trying to do what we can to help our family.
My mind is blown on that phone number thing. I never thought about that.
Right. A lot of places don't think about that because we think military, we're the greatest country in the world, but we think our country, and a lot of times we don't realize we've got forces all over the world and spouses all over the world, and that can work. But if they can't get through the application process, then they're not even in the pool.
Oh my God. I just had an epiphany. If you allow people to put their foreign phone number into your application process, that may identify that they're a military spouse. Thanks, Mike. That's crazy. But no, so one of the things that we're working on at Maxwell as part of our command team, and being part of that command team, is something that is freedom to serve. And this is something that my wife started as the wing commander, and it all comes down to removing barriers to our airmen and our guardians and their families so that they can show up to serve. And I think about that. That's a barrier that I've never thought of, but it makes absolute sense for every spouse that's OCONUS that's applying for a job in the States as they get ready to PCS. They can't put their phone number in.
Right. And to add on to your barrier is also not having a robust military internal team to read those resumes and to understand those nonlinear career paths. And how do you explain that to the hiring manager that this is your candidate? And then also to that point, not just being military friendly, but being military ready, right? So that also means that once you get the spouse inside, you can't just leave them because, again, don't quote me on any numbers, guys, but there's a number here about, I'm just gonna skip over the number. I'm just gonna say, I read somewhere where it says that military veterans have the highest turnover when they transition, right? It's within I'm gonna say a number, something like 16 to 18 months. And the reason for that is once they get inside the doors, they have no support. There's nothing for them. So I encourage, if you're going through this path and looking for military-friendly companies, to your point where you're looking for, that you also do a little bit of research and see what type of support process they have internally, to your point about supporting that military veteran and spouse internally. So such as programs like we have our VetNet company and, one for spouses. And it's just their own specific internal network where spouses can talk to other spouses and lean on each other. And, we have guest speakers, and it's just a great thing for them. So they're not just brought in and then just left to their own devices.
Yeah. And with hiring our heroes, one of the fantastic takeaways that I took was there wasn't a week that I didn't learn something valuable with the program. I was like, I've done this show for a long time. I've written 50 resumes. I have a whole drive full of them. And surely there's nothing. But I was sitting there and somebody mentioned it, how to deal with employment gaps. There was people there to help provide that resume support for those spouses who were out of the workforce. Maybe it's not a chronological resume that you need to present, but a skills resume. I didn't even think I could do it that way. And those kinds of things, or branding yourself or networking. These are just a few benefits that I've came across with hiring your heroes that I found extremely useful, and I know several of my other fellows did as well.
Thanks for that, Monica. Don't you guys just love a panel where the panelists just run away with it on their own, right? They don't need any guidance. They're just here to have a great conversation. Absolutely love it. And as I think about some of your comments about England and Italy and Lower Alabama, God love you. I think about the opportunity. Not only is this a challenge to our military spouses, but this is an opportunity for our employers. We have a war for talent, right? That has not gone unsaid in the context of today's conversations. So as we're looking to tap into talent pools that maybe have gone unnoticed, we come back to military spouses as this talent pool where we have employers who are willing to take a look at that and say, how do we make a go of spouses who are living overseas? How do we tap into candidates who are in geographically remote areas? Man, this is where our military spouses become this gold mine. So absolutely fantastic. I want to, as we start to wrap up, say thanks so much to our panelists for the energy and the expertise they bring to bear on this discussion. As we continue to build on our spouse fellowships, I fully expect that we will have over 400 spouse fellows this year. And with every intention, of course, of continuing to grow and scale year over year. As you've heard today, the time is now. And y'all know I'm not one to let go of that. The time truly is now. We can no longer afford to accept the status quo for our military spouses. And that falls on every one of us in this room to ensure that military spouse employment is always at the forefront of any of our military employment discussions. With that, thanks for being a great audience. We love you.
And now, please welcome the Senior Manager of Military Talent Acquisition at Amazon, Bo Higgins.
Awesome. Well, hey, really fabulous to be here today, and thanks to Eric and the whole HOH team for putting this on. But it's a really amazing event, and to be back together in this group and see so many faces I haven't seen for a while is really wonderful. I had some remarks that were prepared, but I've changed them a little bit based on the conversations that we've had today. And I think it's important, and I look back on where Amazon was 6 years ago. May 12th, 2016, Jeff Bezos goes to the White House and makes a pledge to hire 25,000 veterans and military spouses. Before that, we had no program. There was no military spouse program at Amazon just over 6 years ago. Now, you fast forward from that 25,000 pledge turned into a pledge to hire 100,000 veterans and military spouses, turned into a program where just this year, we have a pledge to hire 10,000 spouses alone. We've already hired over 3,000 in 2022, and we just made a $500 million commitment to grow our military spouse fellowship program. So again, I think the point of all that is, these things don't happen overnight, but you are seeing the movement over time, and it has to start from the top in these companies, right? It's a seed that maybe bubbles up at the lower levels. When you get a commitment from a Jeff Bezos, where we had no program, to a program now where we have over 20 program managers focused on veteran and military spouse hiring, retention, which is a huge part of it, and community engagement. It's just amazing to see what can happen when you have the right people involved and you're willing to invest in programs like that. And I think, in this room and what we've heard today is that, the leaders here, the big companies, the Walmarts, the Prudentials, the CVSs, the T-Mobiles, USAAs, Comcasts, Prudentials of the world, we're already doing this, right? And I think that's great. But there's so much more still to be done. And I think the key thing is, how do we get those smaller companies, those small and medium-sized companies out there that together, collectively, represent a bigger footprint than the big companies that are in this room are involved, right? To me, that's the key for us. It takes that village to continue to drive that spouse conversation. But today, we're actually here to recognize one of those organizations that is going above and beyond at the community level. The Community Leader Impact Award recognizes a community and its leaders for their efforts in creating a strong, inclusive community that allows military spouses to thrive both inside and outside the gates. The award recipient for the 2022 Military Spouse Impact Award for Community of the Year is the state of Ohio. In partnership with the Military Spouse Economic Empowerment Zones program, the state of Ohio working group built, launched, and have sustained a highly functioning effort in support of military spouse employment through a global pandemic. Ohio recognizes the economic impact of military spouse employment, as well as its role in military readiness and retention. One of the first undertaking of the MC's working group was to get military spouses highlighted on the state's job board. Ohio means jobs. Veterans in the system are identified with a red, white, and blue V next to their resume and appear at the top of every employer's resume search. Through the working group, Ohio Means Jobs will now highlight military spouse resumes with a red, white, and blue S next to their name, providing the same advantages that are given to military veterans. The energy Ohio MCs has brought to the MCs program as a whole has reinvigorated MCs numbers across the United States and led to innovation and growth within the program. Please welcome from the Ohio State of Veteran Services, Ryan Blackburn, and the chairs of the Ohio State Military Spouse Economic Empowerment Zone to accept the award.
Please welcome to the stage the head of U.S. Policy and Economic Graph at LinkedIn, Joel Miller.
Well, actually, I grew up in Northeastern Ohio, so maybe I'll just ride that momentum from the last presentation. That was great. Thanks to Eric and Brian, the entire Hiring Our Heroes team. Awesome event and so many great panels today. So coming in at the end here, I don't want to keep everybody late in the afternoon. Hopefully you got your coffee. But we're really excited at LinkedIn about what we're doing, and we've got a few things that we want to talk about briefly. Some of you may be familiar with them. Others may be new, but happy to help. So 2 things I'm going to throw out immediately. You can write these down if you want resources. socialimpact.linkedin.com has everything I'm going to be talking about. We have lots of resources available. Or you can just email me and I'll get you connected. It's pretty easy, joelmiller@linkedin.com. So feel free to talk to me afterwards. But without further ado, actually, I did want to mention, a lot of you know my colleague, Sarah Roberts. Some of you have mentioned her earlier. She's awesome, a legend inside the company, has done great work, and she approved of me leaving the office today. So I'll just put that out there. So look, we appreciate the opportunity to be with you here today. At LinkedIn, our vision really is to create economic opportunity for every member of the global workforce, and that absolutely includes military spouses. We put our members first in everything we do as a company. I've heard that so many times when we're developing the products. It's about listening to our members to understand what the specific needs are. And events like this today are a great way to learn about some of these as well. You all are pillars of our communities, and it's truly humbling to hear your stories and to hear about your experiences today. So I want to start also by saying thank you for your service. Really appreciate that. According to a recent report from Blue Star Families, military spouses face a 20% unemployment rate, which is over 5 times the national average. And military spouses who are employed, and this has been referenced earlier today, are experiencing 63% underemployment rate, meaning working in jobs or roles that don't fully leverage the scope of education, skills, and experience. And that's been addressed multiple times today. There are a lot of factors, of course, that go into military spouse unemployment and underemployment, but it's up to all of us to really ensure that military spouses can thrive in this new world of work that is unfolding in real time. Unlike other disruptive events from the past that may have been limited in geographic scope or to certain sectors of the economy, obviously we all know by now COVID-19 has touched virtually every household and every industry, every profession. And what became known as the Great Resignation certainly gathered steam in this context when many people began to reflect on their values and reevaluate what matters most to me, not least of all in their jobs. Many people voluntarily left jobs because of issues like wage stagnation, rising cost of living, and general job dissatisfaction. So where does LinkedIn fit into this picture? Well, fundamentally, we are a jobs platform. So we have a lot of data on workforce, and we took a look at it. Our analysis showed that what we've been calling the Great Resignation is in many cases actually a great reshuffle. In other words, workers leaving their jobs not to fully depart the workforce, but to take other opportunities that might be a better fit for them personally or professionally. This might include gaining new skills or redeploying existing skills that they hadn't previously thought would be possible. I've heard many stories about that today. Maybe they wanted greater autonomy, to experience more energy day to day, as we've heard about, finding something where they can really tap into their passion. So this great reshuffle, has revealed opportunities also for employers. Again, we've heard examples of this today. Employers being able to tap into new pools of workers who could live anywhere. It allows them to open their recruiting strategies to focus on skills and experience and passion rather than just the geographic restraints of the workforce in their locality. Further, by adjusting remote working policies and recruiting strategies, employers can accelerate diversity and inclusion hiring efforts and hire talent that is traditionally overlooked or untapped. And this, of course, includes military spouses. And we just had a great example of that right before we came up here. So as the world of work evolves in such a dramatic way, we must evolve too, as businesses, as organizations, as a society, or employers will miss opportunities to hire the best available workers. So let's get to the good stuff on what LinkedIn is doing specifically to ask the hard questions, I like that phrase from earlier, to take the feedback, and to roll up our sleeves. First, and again, another plug, socialimpact.linkedin.com. The first is our career breaks feature. Now, military spouses can add a career break to the experience section of their LinkedIn profile to share reasons for so-called resume gaps, which, as we know, almost invariably are beyond your control. Career break entries are also a fantastic way to highlight relevant skills that have been gained through a variety of experiences that may not fit into the traditional parts of a career story as we've always thought about it. We surveyed hiring managers and found that a majority of them felt that people on a career break can restart their career at any time, and that it was best to proactively share career breaks along with additional knowledge gained during their time out of the workforce. Now, there are different types of career breaks that can be selected, such as relocations, career transition, parenting, or other professional development. Second, LinkedIn has added a self-ID functionality specifically for military spouses. In the first panel and several times, many times since then, we've heard about building out better data on military spouses. And this is our way to take a step in that direction. Allowing members to have the option to self-ID as a military spouse or domestic partner within the demographic settings of their profile. By self-identifying on the platform, we can glean aggregated career insights on military spouse members to promote fairness and diversity on the LinkedIn platform and in the broader employer community. Now, to be clear, The self-ID data is confidential, is secure, and is not shared. I want to emphasize that point. Military spouses have complete control of their demographic data and can remove or edit responses at any time. It's completely voluntary, but for those who feel that it is important, it is available. Through this feature, we can be more inclusive of military spouses and build belonging in the workforce and the communities in which you all reside. Finally, we are now offering military spouses free one-year subscriptions of LinkedIn Premium Career through our social impact resource site, which I referenced before. LinkedIn Premium subscriptions offer powerful career tools, such as insights on jobs and employers, feedback on who's viewing your profile, robust messaging capabilities, and access to over 17,000 LinkedIn Learning courses. This is similar to the free subscription that transitioning service members receive, but importantly, it's available to spouses anytime they are faced with a career transition, which, as we know, happens with a lot of frequency. The world of work is changing, and so at LinkedIn, we're going all in, see what I did there, on this opportunity to include military spouses in all of our recruiting strategies. We want to make you a central part of our mission to connect the world's professionals and to make everyone more successful in your careers. So to make real change, we must look beyond products and markets and focus on products and their communities to find the right fit. And we hope you'll join us with that. Thank you, and thank you for your service.
Once again, Eric Eversole and Brian Alvarado.
Well, our program is almost at a close, but we have one very, very important thing to do before we do that. And it's my favorite part of the program, and that's the ability to recognize an exceptional individual who has made incredible contributions in the space of military spouse employment. We created the Bonnie Amos Lifetime Achievement Award in honor of Bonnie Amos, as many of us know, for her incredible commitment and passion for making a difference for our military spouses across the country. The award is really about recognizing that impact, that difference that individuals made for military spouses. It does have one requirement. And that requirement is that simply because we give you the award doesn't mean you can stop working on behalf of military spouses. But with this year's award winner, the Honorable Sherry Mason, I don't think we have to worry about that. And I think we all know and have seen the impact that Sherry Mason has created, not only at the Board of Veterans Appeal for the VA and across the agency, but across a host of federal government agencies. And I could quite honestly go on and on and on, but we have a video that I think will do a far better job of really showing the impact that she's had. Please play the video.
When friends and colleagues think of Cheryl, they think of someone who is bright, serious, capable, inquisitive, determined, effective, powerful, a good listener, and deeply compassionate and committed.
Sherry Mason's a doer, and she doesn't take no for an answer.
My first impression of Cheryl Mason is that she was strong, she was intense, that she was there to create change.
Sherry has always taken the opportunity to help military spouses because she remembers. Sherry remembers what it's like to be a young military spouse, try to find work, try to make a career.
She is very strong.
Sherry has this amazing ability of humanizing herself and those she engages with from a micro and macro level.
She doesn't want someone else to experience what she experienced. And she wants to be the shoulders on which someone stands. Sherry is the daughter of a World War II Pacific Theater veteran. and the daughter of a high school government teacher. When she was 4 years old, her father committed suicide, which obviously devastated the family and was an impact that was felt even to this day. And her mom raised her by herself. As she was coming up on that age, she had decided that she wanted to go off to college and study political science, and unfortunately lost her brother to suicide. She's never talked about it until recent years. It still kind of looms over our family. That occurred about 1 month before she arrived on campus, which is when I first met her. And we've been together since late 1983, got married shortly after college. She really didn't completely understand what she was getting herself into by starting to date a guy who was going in the service right after graduation. And as predicted, I got orders. We were coming to Washington, D.C., and she has an opportunity to interview for a position with the Department of Veterans Affairs. What more positive place for her to land? She was the recipient of VA benefits, the wife of an active duty member. She had a father and brother who were both, service members. So she was very comfortable there.
After building a career as a federal attorney, she followed her husband overseas when he PCS'd. And although that meant leaving behind the career that she had built, she didn't let that stop her. She found work as an office manager, although that was certainly different than the career she had gone to law school for. And when she returned stateside, she used that experience and knowledge from managing an office to build her career as a professional within VA, leading to where she is today as chairman of the Board of Veterans Appeals.
She really saw the opportunities for a remote workforce. And she created pathways for military spouses at the VA to work remotely while still delivering on mission. And Sherry really led the charge on that, and I think created a great model that other agencies were able to tap into.
Because of Chairman Mason's leadership and the flexibility she instilled in our workplace, I know I was able to keep my job for the first time ever when my husband PCS'd to the other side of the country. And I'm not the only one. Cheryl has made an impact in the lives of so many military spouses and veterans.
She has been a benchmark for the work that we have done for the entire community, not just in agencies and her work at the board, but in the entire community and across this nation.
When you look back over Cheryl's career, her legacy, her dedicated efforts between suicide prevention, military spouse employment, it is a legacy of purpose, of passion, of drive.
Sherry inspires me with her tenacity. She is on a mission, and in the most gracious, unrelenting way, she's gonna get the job done. It is inspiring.
She will always find a way to give back to our community, whether it's mentoring, implementing policy, or sharing her story to inspire others. I don't think she knows any other way except to serve.
I can't even describe how proud of her I am. To imagine that a kid who didn't have a chance, by the time she got to college, she was fatherless, brotherless. Nothing broke her way. It makes me speechless.
Cheryl, thank you for walking this journey with all of us. Thank you for stepping ahead. And thank you for persevering.
Well done, Sherry, and congratulations, my sister.
Mom, I'm so proud of you and I love you.
Chairman, congratulations. You've earned it.
Congratulations, Sherry, on being the 2022 Hiring Our Heroes Military Spouse Employment Summit Lifetime Achievement Award winner.
So they told me I had to make a speech, and they didn't tell me what was in the video. So I'm not sure what I'm supposed to say now. I am so honored and so humbled, and I am still speechless from today, which that doesn't happen to lawyers, and it rarely happens to me. So I want to echo something that I've heard here time and time again all day today. This recognition, this organization, everything is about a responsibility we have to empower our military spouses, work together, and drive change. And I won't accept anything else. This is teamwork. And I will tell you, I wouldn't be standing here today with all those people you saw on that screen and many more. Military spouses stick together. We take care of each other, but we know how to make a difference every day. Now, you've heard a little bit about my background. I was raised by a very independent woman named Doris in the great state of Ohio. Clearly, we have a trend here going. And I watched her take on life and overcome challenges every day. And she was a force. She remains a force through the stories we share about her. She told me I could do anything, and I believed her. So when I married that man over there 36 years ago, and I became a military spouse, and the military community told me I can't have a career, my answer was, watch me. So I did. I did it quietly, and somehow I forged ahead with the phenomenal support of my husband and my many military spouse friends. And I was able to piece together a career, support my warrior, and have a family. And I vowed that when I had the opportunity, I would change everything I could. So then one day I looked around me, and to my surprise, the board at VA had hired some lawyers that were military spouses, and they were coming to me for career advice. And I was like, what are you talking to me for? And then I realized we were all hiding in plain sight, and it needed to stop right then and there. So first, I found Military Spouse JD Network, and then I found this fabulous organization. And then I kept my promise that I would change things. And I did, I am, and I will continue to do so. Because as you heard, I don't know anything else to do. And the other difference is that I know a secret who everybody in this room knows. Military spouses are amazing. We pivot. We reinvent ourselves. We change. It's time to stop being a secret. And let's share it. Let's get it out there. And let's make sure that we are doing what we need to do. And as Eric has said, and other people have said, the time is now. I'm here. We're going to go forward. I will not be quiet. That's just not who I am. I am Doris's daughter, unfortunately. For those of you who don't know me, you will. There is much to do. Let's go do it. Thank you all very much.
Congratulations again, Cheryl. Well, on behalf of the entire Hiring Our Heroes team, I'd like to thank you all for being here today. It was an amazing day to see all of our friends in the room again, and all of those watching at home. On behalf of Eric and our leadership team, thank you for your generosity in leadership and guidance. And to my military spouse team, thank you. And with that, we'll close out and enjoy the reception.
Thank you for joining us today. Please reconvene in the carriage house for a post-summit reception.